The link to the recording will be sent to all registered conference attendees at a later date. If you have any questions or comments during the presentations, if you want to interact with the presenters, please feel free to use the chat feature. You can send that message directly to me as a moderator or to all attendees, and I will make sure that your questions get addressed. The conference proceeding booklet will be available in the chat, so please click on the link to access it and learn more about our fabulous presenters for today. We have a very exciting day planned, starting with our opening remarks. And then we'll move on to our workshops and conclude with my most favorite part of the spring conference, the recognition awards. Thank you again for being here. I am looking forward to a wonderful and enriching day together. Our opening remarks today will be facilitated by NJPRA President, Dr. Peter Bastow, and he is also the conference co-chair committee member. It is my pleasure to welcome Peter. Please give him a warm virtual welcome.
Well, thank you, Amy. Thank you for that nice opening remarks there. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 7th annual spring conference. I hope everyone's ready to have a really good day today. Our theme this year is Time to Thrive, Empowering the Psych Rehab Workforce. For those who don't know me, I'm currently the president of NJPRA, and I'm also on the faculty at the Department of Psych Rehab in the School of Health Professions at Rutgers University. Again, thank you all for attending today's conference and recognition awards, and for your support of NJPRA. We have an excellent program for you today with 3 exciting presenters who will be sharing information with you that we hope will help you to thrive and feel empowered. NJPRA is very interested in workforce development, and we hope that you will learn some things that will help you in your work with people who have mental health conditions. As you may know, NJPRA is very involved in mental health advocacy and regularly provides testimony and support to legislation here in the state and nationally. We have a public policy committee which meets virtually on the 3rd Wednesday of each month at noon, where legislative and advocacy issues are discussed. If you're interested in being part of this committee, please reach out to us as it is a place where you will learn about the work being done to help make the mental health system work better. NJPRA has also recently started up a supported employment, supported education work group focusing on identifying the challenges to providing these services and developing strategies to overcome the challenges. It is a new endeavor, and if you're interested in being part of this group, please reach out to us. So getting back to our workshops today, we're starting with Patty Holland, the Assistant Director of the Mindfulness in Public Health and Medicine program at Brown University. Some of you may remember Patty when she was here in New Jersey, when she worked in the Department of Psych Rehab. She also worked at CSPNJ and for the New Jersey Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services. She will be discussing some of the exciting research that has been done on using mindfulness techniques and the tools that the psych rehab practitioner can use to help people with resilience and well-being. So very exciting workshop that I'm looking forward to hearing about. After a short break, the next workshop is Brittany Stone from the Department of Psych Rehab, Rutgers University. She will be presenting some techniques and strategies for executive functioning that we can all use to help us with time management. This is a very important topic as we all struggle with trying to complete all our work activities and to balance our personal lives. After another short break, we will have the last workshop of the conference by Lisa Lacan, founder and executive producer, Urban Tools for Change Network, and co-founder and director of Blessed Ministries, Inc. She will be focusing on how the psych rehab workforce can thrive in their work environment. Her workshop is called Time to Thrive in Your Lane. Do you enjoy what you do? And it's really important that we enjoy the work that we do, as we can't be effective in helping people with their recovery journeys if we don't like doing the work. So another really good workshop. We will then have the recognition awards. So please, everybody, I hope you all stick around for that, because that's where the psych rehab practitioners, supervisors, educators, and administrators who have been nominated by their colleagues for excellence in practice, supervision, education, and administration will be honored. And before I end today, I want to thank my conference co-chair, Amy Banco, for all of her work and help in creating the conference today. I also want to thank John Colessa, the new nominating chair, and the nominating committee, along with the former chair, Diane Piaget-Zet, for all their work in organizing this year's recognition awards. I also want to thank Ruth Cook for once again putting together an excellent proceedings booklet. The booklet link can be found in the chat, and I know that it was sent out earlier also to everybody, so please take a look at that. And I also want to thank the NJPRA Executive Director, Kim Higgs, for all of her work on the conference. And you will be hearing from Kim at the end of the conference when she will be providing the closing remarks. So once again, everyone, thank you all for coming here today, and I hope that you really do enjoy the conference today, as we have some really terrific program for you. I will now hand the program over to our moderator, Amy Banco, and enjoy the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Welcome, folks, to our first session today. A reminder, for those of you that just joined, today's program is being recorded, and a link to that recording will be sent to all registered conference attendees to view at a later date. Again, if you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please feel free to put that info in the chat. You can send it directly to me as moderator or to the whole group. We are now going to start our first session this morning with Professor Patty Holland, who will be presenting a session titled The Science and Practice of Mindfulness for Resilience and Well-Being. Patty Holland is a distinguished practitioner with a rich and diverse background in mindfulness, behavioral science, and psychiatric rehabilitation. She is a certified mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy teacher and teacher trainer. She serves an assistant professor of the practice of behavioral and social sciences with the Mindfulness Center at Brown University School of Public Health. Additionally, she is the assistant director for MBCT education and workplace mindfulness programs at Brown University School of Professional Studies. Patty's work is centered on supporting individuals to cultivate self-awareness, resilience, and to experience greater joy, ease, and presence in their lives, relationships, work, and communities. Her approach combines a deep understanding of the neuroscience of behavior change, motivation-enhancing strategies, and mindfulness techniques to help people achieve sustainable lifestyle changes. Before dedicating herself to teaching mindfulness full-time, Patty accumulated over 30 years of experience in psych rehab as a clinician, nonprofit agency administrator, consultant, public policy professional, and served as an assistant director for the New Jersey Division of Mental Health. Patty has been practicing mindfulness and meditation for over 35 years, with studies in ashrams in India and the United States. She finds immense joy in the sharing of the transformational power of mindfulness and is passionate about exploring its potential to make a positive impact on individuals, organizations, communities, and the field of psych rehab. Let's give a warm virtual welcome to Patty Holland.
Thanks, Amy. Oh, it's good to see you all. Good to be with you all. Oh, and I find myself like choking up just being here, because in so many ways, this is like coming home and being with you all together. And Amy read like a mouthful on my background, but really what we're coming together here today and what I'll present is less research and more, can we come together in our shared humanity, right? What is it like in our moment-to-moment experience? And I'll talk a little bit about mindfulness as it's made its way into the mainstream, both as a practice, but also healthcare, really being considered now one of the third wave behavioral interventions. But first, I want to know from you all, like, how many of you consider yourself having a mindfulness practice of some kind? Even if it's like, I think I do. Right? How many of you consider yourself practicing mindfulness in some way? And you can just either give me a thumbs up on your little screen or just put something in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a pretty good number of people. And for those of you that are like, I don't know about this mindfulness stuff. I'm not sure I do. I'm not sure. Let me ask you all for a moment. Just kind of settle back for a moment and recall a time. It could be recent, it could be in your past, but recall a time when you felt really connected with what you were doing, who you were with, where you were, and really connected with yourself at the same time. See if you can call to mind that situation. And as you bring it to mind, put in the chat what you remember about that experience. Right? What do you remember? How do you remember feeling? What were you doing? Yeah, being in nature, sense of calm. Yeah, we're all definitely works in progress, Stephanie. It's very true. Yeah. Yeah, serenity, being in the flow, everything in harmony. It might surprise you to know that we can feel very present and in the moment and be having a really crappy experience, because that could be what our present moment experience is like. So for some of you, that may be what you recall. There might have been times where we felt really afraid or really anxious. Right? So when we talk about mindfulness, we're talking about all of our experiences, right? There's often a misconception that when we practice mindfulness, we're going to achieve relaxation. And heck, I teach an evidence-based program, mindfulness-based stress reduction. And it seems actually that relaxation is a byproduct, right? Right? Ruth Cook is saying, going to my happy place. I have people come to my class, oh, I need to go to my happy place. This is in the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy program, where we're looking at these really challenging mood states that we experience, anxiety and depression. And sometimes I have to say to my students, it's like, oh, we're not going to go to the happy place today. We're going to go to the places that we actually don't want to look at or be with, but recognizing that in acknowledging our present moment experience, even when it's uncomfortable, that's where healing happens. That's where release can happen. Yeah, it's so good to see everyone. So let me share my slides. Can you all see this? I just need a thumbs up in all my messiness.
Yes, we can see, but it's not in presenter mode. We can
I
see
know,
the
I can't get it in present. Hang on. So you might be like, oh, the mindfulness teacher. I'm just going to show you all the messiness behind, because this is what life is like, right? So this was the reflection that we did. So I just want to ground us in a definition of mindfulness. And one of the more common definitions of mindfulness, really in the Western world and really in the healthcare field where mindfulness has really taken root, comes from Jon Kabat-Zinn, who was the creator of mindfulness-based stress reduction. And so I want to acknowledge that mindfulness is an ancient practice, an ancient approach to being that is rooted in every contemplative tradition. I noticed earlier someone wrote in the chat that when you're praying and saying the rosary, you feel very mindful. Yes, this is a mindfulness practice, and we'll talk about like what that connection is. And it's most articulated in the traditions of Buddhism, but it's across all contemplative traditions. And so Jon Kabat-Zinn, who was a longtime mindfulness meditation practitioner, he was also a cell biologist, and at the time working at UMass Memorial Healthcare System, wanted to find a way to bring the practices of mindfulness to a larger population that didn't rely on adherence to any particular tradition, but where people could really experience the benefits, one, of understanding the nature of the mind and how we might be able to work more with ourselves and our experience to cultivate both more skillful ways of being with times of challenge, but also to experience times of joy and contentment. And so a common definition that we hear from Jon is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And really the definition is mindfulness is the awareness that arises when we pay attention in a particular way. So when we're talking about mindfulness, we're talking about awareness. So for those of you that think, I don't practice mindfulness, you may not practice in a way that you think is talked about or that might be associated with meditation, but we all have the capacity in various levels to be aware. And that's what we're cultivating here. We're cultivating awareness, specifically awareness of what's happening right here, right now. Because as we come to discover, we are often in our minds thinking about our experience or the past or the future or some nonsense that's going on in our minds, and we're not fully present to our experience. So it's the awareness that arises. And so as it's made its way into mainstream healthcare, there has been like a vast body of growing research on mindfulness. And in the early 2000s, there was a panel of researchers and clinical psychologists that came together to come up with an operational definition that really is also aligned with what Jon Kabat-Zinn had said, and really what we see from the contemplative traditions that teach about mindfulness. And that really that there's these two components. It involves some regulation of attention so that it can be maintained or refocused or redirected on our present moment experience. And there is some component that involves a particular way that we're attending, a particular orientation that includes and cultivates interest, curiosity, and acceptance. So when we talk about mindfulness as being non-judgmental, we don't mean that we're not going to have non-judgmental thoughts. That's impossible. In fact, when we start to pay attention to our thought process, we often realize, wow, I just have like a ton of judgmental thoughts. So the invitation is, can we not judge the judging, right? Can we be open to our experience just as it is? So let's practice for a few moments. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and then I'm going to do very brief practices that you can integrate into your daily life. So one key way that we can come into the present moment is to collect and gather our attention and come to one of our senses, something that's actually happening in the present moment. So for just a moment, wherever you are, just gently look around the room that you're in. And see if you can just take in what you're seeing. Just noticing shapes and colors. You might find that your eyes sort of land on a particular object. And see if you can be curious about that, not in a kind of way that you're asking, oh, what is that? Just like, oh, notice how there's an interest that arises, and you might even feel this subtle leaning in or leaning towards what it is you're looking at. Noticing the color. I'm looking at a plant at my desk, the different greens, and how they're contrasted by the dark brown of the dirt. You may be aware of thoughts that arise. We can notice how our mind is constantly commenting on our experience. There might be like, oh, I should dust over there. Oh, I need to tidy up over there. So just see if you can register those, but let them be. And now shifting to sound. So maybe just settle back a little bit in your chair and just open to the sounds that are in the environment that you're in. You don't have to go looking for sounds. See if you can be open and receptive. What is it you notice? There might be the hum of a computer. If you're by a window, you might hear sounds from the outdoors. There might be voices in another room. Just noticing the qualities of the sounds you're hearing, the tone, the pitch, the volume. Maybe noticing how some sounds are steady and other sounds are more fleeting, coming and going. And now let's take this attention that we're bringing to our sense of sight and hearing and bring it right to ourselves. So take a moment and let your attention just sort of scan through your body and just noticing what sensations you feel. What sensations you feel, not thinking about it. So maybe you can feel your feet as they connect on the floor, or your seat in the chair that you're sitting in. Notice if there's any discomfort, and you may find you want to shift or move. So how's the body right now? And how about the state of mind? So not the content or the narrative of the stories that might be present in your awareness, but how does your mind feel early in the morning? Maybe you're a little fuzzy, foggy. Maybe you're feeling alert. Maybe there's a sense of calm or clarity in the mind. How's the state of your mind? And noticing if there's any mood or emotion present. So we don't have to do anything about what we're experiencing, but it's really good to pause often throughout your day and notice how you are. Very often we go from one thing to another, one meeting to another, one task to another. And without realizing it, stress is accumulating. Anxiety may be accumulating. We're carrying where we've just been into where we're going. So if we can pause periodically throughout the day, inviting our attention to come to a particular sense, just touching in for a moment in what you see or what you hear, and then coming to you. How's my body right now? How's my mind? How am I feeling? Emotion. It's only when we're aware of what our experience is that we can do anything about it, right? So these brief check-ins are like valuable techniques for mental hygiene throughout the day. And so letting this go now. We'll continue on. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of what's happening and what we're paying attention when we're practicing mindfulness. Dr. Shauna Shapiro, who's a clinical psychologist, longtime mindfulness practitioner, and a researcher out of the University of San Francisco, identified these three key mechanisms of mindfulness. And you see how they relate back to the definitions that we were looking at. So there's these three aspects. There's intention, this purposefulness. So often in mindfulness, and as I just did earlier, we sometimes start with settle into a comfortable posture, right? When we do that, we step out of autopilot. We step out of wherever we've been lost, and we come immediately to our direct experiences. Oh, I've got to do something with my body. I want to see how my body is and adjust my position. Right? When you're engaged in something or you notice We often don't notice when our mind or attention drifts away, but sometimes we then do recognize, oh, I've not even been paying attention. There was a now famous study out of Harvard that followed people and identified that on average, 47% of the time, people were thinking about something other than what they were actually doing or engaged with. So out of the 102 people that are here, probably half of you are off somewhere else. Maybe you're on another screen. Maybe you're thinking about something else. We notice how fragile our attention is. So we notice that our attention has wandered towards something else. And then we intend to bring it back to the present moment. Oh, wait, what is this person saying? Oh, wait, what was I writing? Right? So there's this intention to return to the here and now. And in mindfulness, particularly in the beginning, we're working with our attention. We're cultivating our capacity to aim, direct, sustain, shift our attention. Maybe you've noticed, but our attention has become commodified. It's a very distracting world. There's a lot pulling on our attention. We can find ourselves pulled repeatedly into social media and different marketing things. And all of these vehicles have behavioral psychologists on staff that are really aware of how our attention can get captured, right? So the best that we can do is learn this for ourselves too, so that we can reclaim this valuable resource, which is our attention. So there's this intention to work with our attention. And it's not just that we're being like seeing clearly, barely, just like, oh, just this. No, this is this attitude that's just as important. How we're attending to our experience. Because we can notice how often critical we are through our past experiences, the cultures that we're in, whether it's the cultures that we grew up in, that we're living in, that we're working in, right? There's so many influences that have contributed to how we perceive and see things that we internalize and take in. So we can start to pay attention to our attitude. Are we judging and critical of ourselves? Can we start to cultivate being kind and friendly and interested in our experience, recognizing that truly we're doing the best that we can? Right? So intention, attention, and attitude. And when we bring these three together, this is where we can see some changes in our relationship to our experience. Mindfulness is about present moment awareness. It's also very relational. We're not only paying attention and aware to what we're experiencing, we are paying attention to how we are relating to what we are experiencing. This is really important because we may not have any control over what happens to us and how we initially react to things. We have every bit of control over what comes next and how we respond next. Really hard, this pausing, checking in, choosing how to respond instead of automatically reacting. But with practice, we can do this. And so this then allows for new skills and shifts in our perspective. And so what are we paying attention to when we're practicing? You know, in mindfulness training programs, we look at paying attention to these aspects of our experience. Thoughts, and when we talk about thoughts, we're also talking about images that might arise in our mind. We might talk about associations and memories. So there's that aspect of cognition and thinking. We can be aware of our emotions, whether we experience these as some combination of thoughts and then body sensations. We can be aware of what's going on in our body. And then the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy program also introduces paying attention to impulses to act. This is that automatic way we have of reacting to our experience. Because what we know from the research from the MBCT program and the research from depression and anxiety in general is that as humans, we have a natural tendency to want to move away from what we don't want, what we don't like, what's challenging. Of course, of course. So there's nothing we can do about that. It's for our evolution, it's for our protection, but we are encountered with these things all the time. So there's this automatic, habitual patterns that we develop of how we avoid things that we have an aversion towards. And it's these very ways that we're avoiding our experience that may in fact contribute to the prolonging or the sustaining or worsening of our experience. This could include things like when we're feeling anxious and we start to ruminate. What about this? What about this? What about this? Feels like we're doing something, momentarily takes our attention off how bad our body feels because we're anxious, or how uncomfortable it feels because we don't know what's happening. But it's actually not addressing the anxiety. And if we pay attention, it might be making it worse. So as we practice mindfulness, we're looking at these aspects of our functioning, of our experiencing, and we're noting patterns. And we're slowing down intentionally a little bit so that we can start to maybe intervene differently on our own behalf. And so the initial research on mindfulness were efficacy studies. And I'll just briefly show 2 slides about some of the positive impacts that we're seeing on physical and behavioral health. But really what we're seeing now in the field of mindfulness is just this expansion of neuroscience. And yet it's still very new. So particular neuroscientists are looking at particular regions and areas of the brain. And so in brief, what we're noticing and seeing that happens with some regular practice of mindfulness, and at the end we'll talk about what that may look like, is that we're seeing this interplay with the plasticity of the brain, and that practicing mindfulness can generate functional and structural changes to network areas of the brain. So both particular regions of the brain, but also the brain connecting in different ways, specifically as it relates to attention regulation, emotional regulation. I tend to look at emotional regulation more as emotional responsiveness. So the aim and the goal is not to dampen or disconnect or dissociate from our emotions. We're human beings and we want to have rich emotional lives. And we also want to, as best as possible, respond with skill to both receiving emotions, feeling emotions, and expressing emotions, not always being so hijacked or overwhelmed by our emotions. So we're seeing these changes in how we can work with attention, regulate attention, work with our emotional responses in a more regulated way. Cultivating a deeper sense of self. When we start to quiet and turn within, we start to connect or reconnect with that which is important to us, our values, our interests, how we really feel about something, where we might be struggling about something. And there's a lot of new research coming out on interoception. So interoception is this capacity to notice our bodily sensations. Our nervous system can detect something about 8 seconds before the conscious brain is able to start identifying it. But often we're not paying attention to our bodies for a variety of reasons. But we're missing valuable cues and data. And sometimes our nervous systems are detecting threats because something's been triggered, something looks familiar. The brain as a predictive organ is sort of like experiencing something and pulling on its memory banks about what might be happening. And so we might find that fight, flight, fear, anxiety, stress might be triggered. And it might not be related to what's actually happening. It might be, it might not be. But if we miss those cues, we miss an opportunity to check in and see, oh, what's going on? Give ourselves a moment to sort of soothe and calm our nervous system down, maybe develop a broader perspective. So we talk about these 2 modes of mind in mindfulness. One is not better than the other. One is probably just more familiar than the other. A thinking doing mode or a sensing being mode. We're very familiar with thinking. We're rewarded for it. We're trained in it. It's invaluable. It's what makes us human, right? Thinking about our experiencing, analyzing, interpreting, evaluating, doing something about our experience. But there's another way of knowing as well, more non-conceptual, sensing, being. Like, for example, right now, just bring your attention to your feet. Notice how, without necessarily naming it, you can feel something. You can sense something about the place where your feet and your floor are connecting. There's a felt sense. So when we practice mindfulness, we're cultivating this sense of being so that we have the capacity to intentionally shift between these two modes. Again, one not better than the other. We want to be able to do both. So let's practice again. So as I said, settle into a comfortable position. Here, that's bringing your attention right here. So just allowing your sitting bones to just release right into the chair. So that you might even feel this sense of downward pull of gravity. And then if you're sitting in a chair, there's this upliftment of the torso. You might want to just bring your shoulders up a little bit, roll them back and bring them down, opening a little bit of the chest. You can close your eyes, but it's not necessary. So if you can close your eyes if you're comfortable, or if you prefer, just allow for a soft downward gaze. So we're going to practice for just a few minutes. And often in mindfulness, we hear about awareness of the breath or bringing the attention to the breath. And for sure, there are many beneficial reasons for doing this. And we're going to start with the breath. But also what we know from the research and from practice is that for some people, and sometimes for all of us at different times, focusing on the breath is not comfortable. In fact, bringing our attention to the breath can generate anxiety. And some of us may have a respiratory condition that makes it challenging. So it's not about the breath. It's about offering the mind, offering attention, actually, a place to rest and return. So right now, see if you can feel where you most strongly sense movement of breathing in your body. You might feel it at the nostrils, the chest or the belly. And see if you can guide your attention right to the breath, right to this place where you feel the breath. And probably within a nanosecond, you're going to experience your attention pivoting and thoughts coming up. It's okay. It's okay. It's actually not a problem. And we're actually not trying to stop the mind and mindfulness. We're not trying to stop thinking. We couldn't if we tried. So notice your mind wanders. Bring it back to where you feel the breath. Now letting go of that for a moment. And here's another possible anchor for attention. We refer to these as anchors because think of an actual anchor, a boat in a body of water, and the anchor is dropped. So the boat may still move and bob, but the anchor always brings it back to a center. So we want to find these anchors that are readily and always accessible, that we can use anywhere, anytime, that feel comfortable and familiar and safe for us. So the breath is one, but so are touch points on the body, such as the hands or the feet. So for a few moments, bring your attention to your hands or your feet. And just like have the attention be on anything you sense here. So there might be this sensation of where your feet are touching the floor, like I said, where your hands are resting. Temperature, little pulsing or tingling. Attention wanders, bring it back to the hands or the feet. And letting that go for a moment. So another possible anchor is sound. We did this earlier. So sometimes it can be more helpful and supportive if we bring our attention outside of our inner experience. Perhaps mind and body are feeling really restless or agitated, or it feels too uncomfortable. We can bring our attention to sound. So once again, open to the sounds that you're hearing where you are. So there's this resting and returning of attention. We're offering the mind a place to settle. And it's not a harsh sit, stay. We recognize that attention is fragile, easily distractible. It wanders off. This is where attitude comes in, very gently guiding the attention back in this moment to sound. Okay, letting go of that. So now for the next minute, so this way you don't have to think about time. You don't have to think, oh my God, how long are we doing this for? For the next minute, choose one of these anchors where you feel the breath most vividly, or maybe bringing your attention to your hands or your feet, or sound. And let's practice this attentional focus. If you notice that you're caught up in thinking or something, just be like, oh. Bringing the attention right back to where you intended, right? Intention, attention. And doing this with gentleness and kindness. Coming back to the breath, or the hands and the feet, or sound. And then to bring this to a close, just taking just a couple of deep breaths. So breathing in and breathing out at a depth and pace that's comfortable for you, letting your attention settle on that. And then if the eyes are closed, opening the eyes, and if the gaze is lower, raising it. And if you care to, just putting in the chat what you noticed during this brief practice. Maybe you noticed a busy mind. Maybe you noticed a sense of calm, observation of thoughts. recognizing them, and this is a capacity to bring them back. This type of practice, referred to as a focused attention practice, really cultivates our ability to be less vulnerable to distraction. We're cultivating concentration, but not in a harsh way. We're giving the attention a place to rest. We're recognizing when it wanders, and we're gently guiding it back. And when we start to gather our scattered attention, there can be a sense of calm and peace. Not always. Sometimes we can notice how we're like, oh, this is hard. This is frustrating. Oh, whatever is going on. And we can notice that it feels challenging. We're not often used to practicing with our attention in this way. Yeah. Noticing how busy the mind is. As soon as we start to quiet down, the to-do list pops up, right? So it's possible with practice, and our classes teach this, it's possible to have a busy mind and not always be so caught up in it. Great, thank you, everyone. Let's continue. So just briefly, some of what the research has shown in terms of positive impacts on mental and emotional well-being. And I'll just put these up on the slide and you can see, right? So these ways and these aspects of our mental health and well-being, right? Anxiety, depression, addiction, and habit change, all these different ways that mindfulness can support with these. And then also a lot of research has been done on specific health-related conditions, and often conditions that can be exacerbated by stress. When John Kabat-Zinn first started NBSR, and he immediately brought it to the healthcare system, and he said to the physicians there, send me your patients that you don't know what to do with. So this was in 1979. They sent him all the people with chronic pain because they didn't know what to do with them. So a lot of research has been done on chronic pain, blood pressure, diabetes, digestive issues. And so what are we seeing now in the field of behavioral health with mindfulness programs? So these are the main programs where there's a solid sense of research behind. And so mindfulness-based stress reduction was really the first program. When John Kabat-Zinn designed it in 1979 and brought it into the healthcare system, he was very wise in that he immediately started researching it. And then about 10 years later, 3 experts in the field of depression, cognitive therapy and science, and research built off of MBSR, the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy program. And this particular program has such positive outcomes for depression and anxiety. It was designed initially for recurrent depression, and the research has spread to anxiety. It is in the national health systems of both the UK and Canada, as treatment is normal for depression, mild to moderate depression. At the Mindfulness Center at Brown, Dr. Eric Laux, who's an epidemiologist and the director of the Mindfulness Center at Brown, took the MBSR program and he did 2 adaptations, one for college-based students, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but also for blood pressure. Dialectical behavioral therapy was actually one of the earlier mindfulness programs. DBT is considered more a mindfulness-informed program because mindfulness is one of the 4 skills that are taught in DBT. For MBSR and MBCT, and for anything mindfulness-based, the main intervention is actually the practice of mindfulness, the more systematic cultivation of this awareness, and then applying it towards whatever the course is looking at. Acceptance and commitment therapy is an individual therapeutic modality that also integrates mindfulness into as a key component. And then there's a lot of research from Eric Garland coming out on mindfulness-oriented recovery enhancement. And so what are we seeing about how might these mindfulness programs actually be affecting the change that we're seeing? So that there's these elements right now, this intentionality, right? So there's something about purposefully bringing our attention to our present moment experience that is allowing for some of the benefits that we're seeing and some of the healing that's experienced, in part because we're interrupting that habitual chain of experiential avoidance that can keep distress and suffering in place. a key feature of mindfulness is this aspect of decentering. In ACT, you might, if you're familiar with acceptance and commitment therapy, it might be diffusion. So this is the capacity to be aware of our experience and step outside of it. So this is not the same thing as dissociation, repression, or suppression. So it's not sort of avoiding or denying our experience. It's really more a metacognition, being aware of what we're aware of. So we're aware of our experience, but we're able to step back from it a little bit. This allows for intervening in a different way, in a less automatic, habitual way, and it allows for new perspectives to emerge. As I've mentioned, there's the tendency and the capacity that when we practice mindfulness has of interrupting experiential avoidance. It's anti-ruminative in that we're also interrupting chronic and behavioral thought patterns. And it's a general skill. So it's something that can be practiced and applied across many places. And so one theoretical frame about how these programs apply mindfulness is there's mindfulness-based intervention. So all of these programs in some way train systematically in foundational mindfulness practices, and I'll mention those briefly. And we're directing these at self-attention, self-awareness, emotion regulation, and attention control. And this leads to behavior change. So how this model, for example, looks in mindfulness-based college that Eric Laux developed for college students is he worked with students to identify for them personal determinants of health that they wanted to work with. So each of them identified a goal in these areas of determinants of health. They trained in mindfulness meditation practices. They were cultivating attention control, emotion regulation, and self-awareness. They then applied that to these, and then with very positive outcomes, particularly around the particular goal that they were working on, reduction in less harmful or unhealthy habits related to these goals. But because it's a group-based program, many of these are group-based modality, also saw strong increases in the students' sense of connection with others. So I talked about two types of practice. There was a focused attention and an open awareness. We're just going to briefly do what an open awareness is. So in the focused attention, you picked an anchor and you came back to it. So here now, we're going to start with that anchor and then we're gradually open our experience. So once again, take a comfortable position. And if it's comfortable for you, I'm going to use the breath as a guide. But if it's not comfortable, go to that other anchor that you practice with, whether it was the hands, the feet, or sound. But for a few moments, allowing the attention to rest and return on where you feel the breath now. So here, what we're doing is we're offering attention a place to rest, feeling this inhalation or exhalation. If there's a wandering, coming back. And now let's start to open up that awareness a little bit. So your breath or this anchor is always there for you to come back to if the mind feels unsteady. But right now, see if you can open your awareness and have a sense of your entire body. Your feet on the floor, all the way to your head. Maybe you have a sense of the front of your body and the back. The different sensations. Letting attention be on the different physical sensations, the different bodily sensations that you're experiencing. Temperature. An itch. Our mind will go to what's strongest and often what has the most negative balance. So if there's areas of tension, that's where your attention might be going. You can then, if you find you keep being pulled towards an area of the body that's uncomfortable, you can open up and just ask, what else do I feel in my body? Is there tension or pain in my ankle? In my cheeks? So there's a broader awareness. Let's see if we can open up a little more. And now allowing sound to also register. So here, when we practice what's called an open awareness for longer periods of time, we're becoming familiar with the sense of awareness itself and all that arises. Here we're just noticing sensations of breathing, the different sensations in the body, and sounds. As we practice longer, we also include thoughts and emotions, growing in this capacity to be with the totality of our experience. So bringing this to a close, maybe once again, just coming to the breath and feeling this inhalation and this exhalation. Opening the eyes if they're closed. So how do we practice mindfulness? So what we were doing periodically throughout this presentation, this anchor of attention, coming to our senses, this brief little open awareness that we just did, we refer to these as formal practices. This is where we're designating a period of time and we're engaging in a particular type of practice. So now the research is not conclusive as of yet about the length of practice, although it's getting more clear that we're starting to see these benefits that we're experiencing, that we're seeing in the research and the plasticity changes that we're seeing with around 10 to 20 minutes. But it's not clear. It's not clear yet. What is very clear in the research is that consistency of practice is what yields these results. So this continuity of awareness that builds. So much better to intentionally do something for a minute a day than do nothing and try to sit for meditation or mindfulness for an hour on the weekend. You won't be able to do that. Your mind won't be trained and you'll be terribly frustrated. And so often how people practice and how you probably are practicing, whether you know it or not, is through informal practices, which is stapling being fully present to what you're doing anywhere, anytime. Cooking dinner, taking a shower, opening the door, going for a walk, being fully present so that you're experiencing it. Remember that sensing being mode of mind, aware of how it feels in the senses, aware of what you're doing, not necessarily thinking about your experience or about something else. So we touched briefly on focused attention and open awareness, body awareness also. Periodically during the day, you can just stretch. And if you stretch and do something like, oh God, when is this day ever going to end? That's not going to be very helpful because your body is reacting to what's going on in your mind. But if you take a pause and stretch and feel the tension either release or the sensations as you raise your arm up and down, now you're gathering the attention and bringing it to your present moment experience. And we can practice bringing compassion and loving kindness to ourselves. So I'm going to stop here and just see if there's any questions in our final moments or any reactions to what we just explored. And you can put them right in the chat,
Thank you so very much, Patty, for sharing your expertise and passion with us. I could listen to you all day, walk us through exercises. It really resonated with me, and I hope it resonated with all of you. It was almost like a wake-up call to how much time I spend either thinking about the future or ruminating about the past, and really robbing myself of the peace and genuine calm of the present moment. Thank you.
Yeah.
But we did have some questions coming into the chat. One of the questions, looking at mindfulness, thinking about any examples that you have in working with someone in psych rehab services, using mindfulness, and what was that like?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I would use it all the time in my practice. In fact, that's why I went and trained in mindfulness, is I wanted to find a way to bring it back, both bring it back to staff and my colleagues, and also bring it back to the individuals that I work with. So there's lots of ways to do that. Some of you may already do that through modalities that you're delivering for people. But sometimes it's just simple as like when you first meet with someone, or when someone is feeling a little anxious, it's like, wow, whew. You know, you can model that. It's like, wow, whew. Are you feeling anxious? I'm feeling pretty anxious right now. Like, why don't we just sit back and let's just feel our feet on the floor? So you're normalizing it, you're recognizing it. You're inviting someone to come into the present moment by bringing their attention to something tangible, right? We know more about adverse experiences with people with mindfulness, so we know more about maybe folks that longer periods of practice are not good for. But often bringing people to movement, you know, sometimes you'll do orienting things that are also mindfulness practice. Oh, can you look around and see and name 5 things that you see? How about 4 things that you hear? You know, often we'll invite people to focus on the breath, and you want to make sure that feels comfortable for them. It might just be first, before bringing them to the breath, bring them to a stretch. Right? And the best way to do it is to start to pay attention to how you use mindfulness, what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And then invite people to do that.
I love how you
I could go on for days on that, but I won't, obviously.
No, that's amazing. I love how you highlight these very like psych rehab practices, the active accompaniment, you know, doing it with the person, individualizing it, what that person may like versus what another person might like, knowing that, you know, one person had mentioned this piece about, oh, someone might be triggered by anxiety when they're focused on the breath. And so alternatives to that, really that individualized approach that we follow in psych rehab. Thank you. I see some comments in the chat from Leonard. All is wonderful, just timing. Antoinette, my 2 mindfulness activities I practice is yoga and kickboxing.
Yeah, great.
Leonard, you're noting that you do a lot of stuff with individuals already. Very nice. We do have a question about how do you approach training staff and practitioners in mindfulness techniques? What would that look like? What would you recommend for people looking to bring this into their psych rehab organizations?
Yeah, I have to say I have a pretty strong bias on this. One informed by personal experience and research, is because mindfulness is so popular and so trendy. I see it coming into agencies and services without any training. And that can be very dangerous. And I see it being offered by practitioners or that aren't practicing themselves. So they're reading a script. Bring your attention to your breath now. Yeah, breathe in, breathe out. So they're not connected. One of the things we know from the research on teacher training is it's the practitioner's embodied sense of being present with who they're working with that supports this attunement, right? So we don't want to invite anyone to do something that we don't have any experience with. Like if I'm going to practice, I want to know the landscape of my mind and how challenging that is before I invite someone there. Yeah. So what we recommend is that staff for themselves go through a mindfulness program. And that there's so many ways that can look. There's these formal programs that are long and a commitment, and BSR and BCT are 2.5 hours. You know, we've developed abbreviated versions of these programs because we know sometimes that's a big lift for agencies and for people. But you can even do like just weekly coming together, those of you that have experience with mindfulness, like practice together, but talk about it, so that when you start to bring it to individuals that you're serving and supporting and working with, you're doing it in a way that's safe and in partnership with people. So first, start for yourself. We share something like mindfulness completely from our own experience. So find out for yourself what is supportive and what works, and then allow that to sort of seep into your culture, and then bring that to the individuals that you're working with.
Yeah, so really building expertise, and that expertise is, again, very psych rehab oriented and doing it yourself, knowing this practice thoroughly yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to put my email in the chat, and I'm not here marketing programs at Brown, by all means. I don't want to give that, but I am happy if you've got questions like, oh, I want to bring this to my agency. I'm happy to have an exchange with you, primarily because I feel really committed about the benefits of mindfulness and also the importance of doing it wisely and skillfully. And so there's lots of resources available.
Thank you. Thank you, Patty. NJPRA is so grateful for your contribution to the conference and the positive influence that you've had on the fields of psych rehab. Folks, your attendees, please give a huge virtual round of applause and a heartfelt thank you to Patty Holland for your presentation today. We are just so very appreciative, and I hope we all are going to take from this and apply into our own journey and insights the practice of mindfulness. Patty, thank you for being here today. I wish we had more time. I could do a whole day with you and just de-stressing. I love it.
Yeah, thanks. It's so good to be with you all again. Yeah. And maybe we'll see each other in the future. Maybe we will do a half-day workshop, Amy.
I would love it. I would sign me up. Take my credit card, Patty. We will be taking a 10-minute break, and we'll be starting again at 10:20 with the next workshop from Brittany Stone, who will be talking about strategies for strengthening executive functioning in practitioners, looking at time management techniques and tips. See you all back at 10:20, folks. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you all.
That the program is being recorded today, and a link to the recording will be sent to all registered conference attendees to view at a later date. If you have any questions, comments during the presentation, please feel free to use the chat feature and send your questions directly to me or to the whole group, whatever feels good and right for you. We are now going to start our second session of the morning, and our presenter for this session is Professor Brittany Stone, who is going to be presenting on strategies for strengthening executive functioning in practitioners, time management techniques, and tips. Brittany Stone has 20 years of experience in the field of psych rehab as both a practitioner and counselor educator. She is a faculty member in the Department of Psychiatric Rehabilitation and Counseling Professions at Rutgers School of Health Professions, where she provides training and technical assistance to agencies and staff seeking to improve employment and education outcomes of people living with mental health conditions. Brittany has also provided course instruction to students in the department's undergraduate psych rehab program and the master's rehab counseling program. Brittany obtained her master's degree in rehabilitation counseling. She is a certified rehabilitation counselor, a nationally certified counselor, and a licensed associate counselor. She is currently a doctoral candidate pursuing her degree in counselor education and supervision. Her areas of interest and expertise include college student mental health and wellness, identity and help-seeking behavior, disclosure of mental health conditions, executive functioning, and cognitive behavioral counseling. Please give the warmest of welcome to Brittany.
Good morning, everyone. Amy, thank you so much for the introduction. I am really excited to be here today with all of you to get to talk about time management. I always like to preface these talks by saying that I am by no means, I have not mastered time management, and all of my executive functioning skills are not perfectly honed. This is an ongoing process. So while I share a number of tips and tricks and strategies, and I know a lot about this area, it is a work in progress, and it constantly takes fine-tuning and refinement. So thank you again for having me this morning. I'm going to be talking a lot about time management in the next 45 minutes or so. And this is a really critical component, not just to providing high quality services, but also to being able to maintain personal wellness, to avoid burnout, and to be able to fulfill the things that are personally meaningful and important to all of you. So time management is just one of the many executive functionings that we need to help us evaluate our resources, plan ahead, execute our tasks, be prepared for the things that we need to do. So this morning, I am going to just do a quick overview of executive functions, but then focus mostly on strategies and approaches for you to try. As I'm talking, I really want you to think about what things have you tried already? What do you currently do well? And what types of strategies might you want to fold into your routine? So before we get to that, if you could use some of those reaction buttons, I want to just take the temperature of everyone. In thinking about your time management, is this something that you consider a skill? If so, you can use that heart reaction button. If you think your time management could use some modifications, you can do the raised hand symbol. And if time management is something that's an ongoing challenge for you, give a thumbs up. Let's take a look at all of these.
We had a lot of thumbs up coming in, Brittany.
Yeah, and I imagine that at different points, we feel different ways about this, right? There's those times when it's, yeah, I'm good, I've got this. And then we have a shakeup. Life happens and throws us some curveballs. And what once worked might not work anymore for you. So, you know, consider where you are now. And if this is something that could use some modifications, or if it's something that's an ongoing challenge, I hope that this is assistive today. So as I said, this is kind of what we're going to cover. So let's just jump in. So just to touch on this, and I'm going to move through this fairly quickly. All of the things that I talk about today, just like Patty Holland was saying, I feel like could be a full day in and of itself. So executive functioning, it's this big umbrella. It's a collection of cognitive skills or neuropsychological processes that are needed to sustain problem solving and work and progress towards our goals. It enables us to account for short and long-term consequences of actions, to plan for those results. It allows us to make real-time evaluations of our actions, make adjustments. And there's a lot of different models of executive function. There's a lot of different ways these things are broken down. Core sets typically include some inhibition or inhibitory control, self-control, being able to select what you pay attention to, your behavior, your thoughts, your emotions. Working memory is another area, being able to hold on to information and be able to work with it. And then cognitive flexibility. And this can be referred to as mental flexibility, mental set shifting. This is closely linked to creativity. It helps us to change our perspective. It helps us to find unique approaches to problems, adjust to new demands, and switch between tasks. There are also things such as reasoning, problem solving, planning. Dr. Brown writes a lot on executive function, and he kind of clusters it by organizing, prioritizing, activating, focusing and sustaining, regulating alertness, managing frustration, accessing recall, and utilizing working memory. These things are critical for many areas of our life. They help us with academic achievement. They help us with job performance, relationships, and is really fundamental to our success and our satisfaction in being able to move through these different roles. So here is just a summary of some of the research on how executive functions can tie into various aspects of your life and the impact that it can have. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I do want to highlight that job success component and quality of life component, because that's what we're really talking about today. Or that's what my focus is for you as practitioners to be able to maintain high quality work and to maintain your own wellness. So when it comes to job success, difficulty with executive function is linked to decreased productivity, barriers in finding and maintaining work. And people who have better executive functioning ability report better quality of life. Now, the thing with these is that they can all be strengthened. They're skills that we can actively work toward to be able to improve. So what gets in the way when some of our executive functions aren't coming together so well? Well, it could be that we have trouble kind of filtering out noise, maintaining our concentration, completing job tasks on time. When it comes to organizing and planning, it might be really hard to manage our time and to put attention where it needs to go and not spend more time on tasks that aren't as valuable or important to us. It might make us feel more disorganized. When it comes to regulating our emotions and impulse control, that can help us with meeting deadlines, being able to stay on task, managing our reaction to things. Cognitive flexibility allows us to shift perspectives, think about information in new ways, think critically about the problems and about the use of our time and our interactions. And then working memory, it might look like difficulty participating in meetings, fulfilling clinical responsibilities, completing documentation, or even fulfilling multi-step job tasks. Now, you notice that I didn't necessarily say time management, but when you look at the difficulty caused in each of these areas, it's really related to many components of time management. And time management is just a large set of skills that impact and are impacted by our executive function. So I want you to think for a minute, and I would love for some of you, if you want to put it in the chat, to think about what are some of your time management challenges. Is it that you're constantly at war with some of your deadlines? Are you a procrastinator? Do you have some feelings of self-doubt that creep in? Are you a perfectionist? Do you underestimate the amount of time that various tasks will take to complete? Do you feel that you are just swamped by multiple competing demands or overwhelming amount of work? Of course, sleep, paperwork, easily distracted by competing tasks, right? So it's everything feels really important, really urgent, and where do you spend your time? And then poor sleep, absolutely, because that impacts our ability to focus, concentrate, retain information, and then it feels like we're constantly scrambling. Oh, Jillian, it's nice to see you. Taking on too much and find it hard to delegate. Yes. Yeah, that delegation piece is really critical for time management, but also another skill that's hard to master. The juggle of life and work. Avoiding things that I fear I may do poorly on. Yeah, so some of those perfectionist tendencies that I don't know if it's going to come out the way I want, and I have really high expectations of myself. Yes, pleasing everyone. And then sometimes you're the one that tends to internalize all that stress. Thank you all for sharing. So it's important to get a sense of what our personal time management issues are so that we can pair the right strategy to meet the right challenge. It's just like when we're working with people in the field who are in our program, it's an individualized approach. Everyone's strengths and everyone's barriers and everyone's environment is different, and you're going to use different tools for different needs. So I just want to touch on this definition of time management, and I think it's a really useful one that we're going to return to. So this definition is that time management is a form of decision-making used by individuals to structure, protect, and adapt their time to changing conditions. So this definition really encompasses three core components: structure, protection, and adaptation. So no single time management strategy is going to be a cure-all for all of these things. Instead, we're going to want to use different strategies to address various components of time management. So when we're thinking about skills that we need to manage our time, we also want to think about what skills do we have, what need refinement, what aren't working within that environment, or what resources do we have. So we want to think about the ability to plan for the future, the ability to set goals, to prioritize tasks. And then that follow-up component is that monitoring, where does our time actually go? So a number of the strategies that we're going to discuss today, they hit on each of these different skills. So you might be really, really great about setting goals and knowing exactly what it is you want. But then when it comes down to that day-to-day, how do I operationalize those? How do I prioritize my tasks? Where is my time actually going? Those might be the skill areas that you want to put your work. On the other side, you might be really great at managing your day-to-day time, but when it comes for planning for the future, what are those next steps? What are the goals that I have for myself personally and professionally? You might need some refinement there. So again, think about, as we're going through and as you're reflecting on your own time management challenges, what skills are you really strong in and where do you want to build? And ultimately, this is important because time management is correlated with a lot of measures of well-being. And if we are not keeping ourselves well, we are not going to be able to do our jobs as effectively, be there for our family and friends, be there for the people that we are supporting, be there for our coworkers. We're not going to feel as much enjoyment and satisfaction in our role. So it was really important that we are taking care of ourselves, and time management is part of that. So when we better manage our time, we can satisfy our responsibilities. We can meet our work demands. We can meet our goals. We reduce our risk of feeling really overwhelmed by stress, or feeling like a failure, or feeling like we're an imposter in our environment. And a lot of other, of those well-being issues. When we're looking at the research on time management, we see that it's correlated with measures of well-being, including psychological health, job satisfaction, confidence, our self-esteem. It is negatively correlated with stress, and it's positively correlated with other work and academic performance measures, such as academic success and self-reported job performance. It improves our performance. We are able to devote more time to tasks that have a higher priority. There's an acceleration of work progress, and there's an increase in job satisfaction when you feel like you're able to manage your time well. So the aim of time management is really to allocate more time to kind of think about the tasks and duties and do it in a way that is intentional and that makes sense and that is aligned with what we want, not necessarily performing more tasks in less time. So we want to really think about like that role of goal setting and having that as an effective first step to time management. So that way it is more about the quality and the approach that we have. I liked this quote. It just says, "Everything requires time. It is the one truly universal condition. All work takes place in time and uses time up." So there's no getting away from this. It's going to creep into every area of your life. So now let's get into kind of the meat of this presentation and talk about some strategies. As I was saying, though, I do want to stress that better time management strategies are not the solution for being overworked, having an unrealistic workload, or fixing staffing issues. So I want you to take a real critical look at your own time management approaches but I don't want you to internalize things that might be beyond your control or system-based. If you are down 4 staff in your program, no amount of time management on your part is going to fix that. So just that caveat, moving forward. So it's important to select the right strategy in order to set yourself up for time management success. So I want to reflect back on that definition of time management for a minute. So remember, it's a form of decision-making used to structure, protect, and adapt time to changing conditions. So what does that actually mean? How do those 3 components look? So structure, it refers to how our time is perceived, measured, and allocated. Protection is how we protect our time from being wasted, misdirected, or deviated from our initial plan. And adaptation is how well we can cope with unexpected tasks or surprises. So I don't have to tell any of you that you all know you might have the most perfectly scheduled day, a wonderful planner that looks color-coded, it's organized, and then you get to work that next day. And there's a crisis, or there's somebody who called out, or there's something unexpected, or there's a meeting called, or the company car broke down, or there's a traffic jam, or whatever it is, right? There are always going to be those things, but part of time management is being able to adapt to those changes, to those fluctuations in an effective way, because we can't avoid it. And we know we can't be so rigid in the way that we think and we look at our time. So there's no one size fits all approach here. Just like when we work with individuals in our program, it's the same for us. It's trial and error. It's setting some goals, identifying a plan, working through the process, and then recognizing like, that's not for me. What tweaks, what modifications, what pivots do I need to make? So there's various strategies to address various things. Yeah, I have a little agreement. Yeah. Okay, so let's break these down a little bit. Some of them clearly line up by that structure, protection, and adaptation. Others kind of merge into more than one area. So we'll start with structure and we'll move through. Now, the first step is to really be clear on what are your goals. Set clear goals, make them smart, just like you do in your programs. Have it be really specific. Connect it to your objectives that are behavioral. Make sure that it's relevant to where you're going in the future, where you see yourself, your job tasks, your growth, your values, and set timeframes for these things. When we have unclear goals, it can really affect how we manage our time and how we prioritize our time. It's really hard to feel motivated to work on things when they don't feel meaningful or relevant to you, or like it fits in with your plan. So when we're thinking about how we plan and structure our time, we want to think about those things that are critical to us and those things that we are accountable for, to other people. So it's that balance, right? Between like, what are our day-to-day responsibilities that we have to meet? What are the things that we are responsible for because we work on a team and we work for a program? But then also, where do our own personal goals fit in to being able to plan for our time? If we don't set goals for ourselves, we might start to lack focus, miss our targets, or misuse some of our time in saying yes to things that aren't really aligned with where we want to go. So we really want to consider them. What are our values? What are our priorities? And that way we can really make sure things are aligned with our personal goals, the needs of those around us, and are realistic to the resources and the supports that we currently have. Now, then we bring that into our to-do list. So we've got our clear goals. We have things that are specific, and we want to start thinking about, well, how is this really lining up? So we can take those goals and then we can start breaking that down into this master list. So this is what I call like a to-do list with a twist. It helps us take a look at that bigger picture and then start to narrow it down. This pairs really well with the Eisenhower principle or Eisenhower matrix, which I'm going to talk about in a little while. So we have our master list, and then we think about, okay, well, what am I accomplishing in the next month? What is realistic? What are my weekly? And then what are my daily, right? Because we have all of these different levels of things. So this might mean that we have, ongoing recovery plans that we need to complete, but we also want to complete that application for grad school, or we want to be able to fulfill a professional development opportunity. We want to make sure that we're meeting with our supervisor on a regular basis to be able to talk about skill development. It might mean that we have to get our progress notes done. So how often are we doing all these things? What are our follow-ups? Who are we accountable to? And we don't want the important things to slip off. So having that master list up top kind of forces us to look at, where are we building this in each month? Where are we building this in each week? Especially if it's not coming up on our daily list. Now, another thing that can really help us to structure our time is figuring out where our time goes. And if you just can't seem to fit everything in a day, like if that to-do list is so long that it's constantly rolling over, which I know for many of you, that's probably the case. It's really thinking about, okay, well, how am I spending my time? Because you're juggling a lot of priorities, right? It can be hard to do that. It can be hard to meet deadlines and balance both professional and personal time. And that can feel really overwhelming. So doing a time audit can become a game changer for you in allowing you to take charge of your schedule and allocate your hours most effectively. So what this is, it's really a meticulous examination of how you spend your time. It's looking at the minutes, the hours that make up your day, and it can show you patterns, things that you don't even realize that often go unnoticed. And this is one of the things that I really encourage my students to do, especially when they're new to a graduate program, is to do a time audit. They might be used to, working and having different family or social obligations, but when you throw graduate school in the mix now, you are accounting for class time, for homework, for prep. You also need to sleep, eat, and maintain your wellness. So I always encourage new grad students to do a time audit, to take a real hard look at how are you using your time? Where do you have windows of time? And then what do you need to prioritize, move around? So with analyzing your daily tasks and activities, it helps you determine their impact on your overall productivity. And then it allows you to make good decisions about your time, or I shouldn't say good, informed decisions about your time, right? What are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? Who do you need to pull in for some support and assistance? So for a time audit, you're going to start by tracking your time, and you're going to set 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 days, whatever you can give. Ideally, you're doing it over at least a week to really break down what are you doing day to day. So you want to track your activities and you want to be real honest about it. And that's sometimes hard. Like you want to document if you just spent 20 minutes on the TikTok rabbit hole of watching videos, or if, that real quick lunch break turned into like a big snack fest and some stress eating that went a lot longer than anticipated. So what you thought was going to be a 15-minute break has now been 45. How long does it really take you to do those progress notes or do that documentation? How long does it take you to commute over to your next appointment? Because that area in Elizabeth is always high traffic, so you're like, oh yeah, no, it's 10 minutes, but it's really 25 minutes because of the traffic. So you're analyzing all of that. Then you're going to start to categorize it. So how are you labeling these things? Are you leisure, social, work, face-to-face time, indirect hours, prep, meetings? You know, is it a lot of meetings that are eating up your time? Is it emails? So where are you spending it? What patterns are you starting to notice about looking at it? Do you have time wasters on there, whether those are your own personal time wasters or administrative time wasters? Is there somebody else that could be stepping in? Do you have an intern on site? Do you have administrative support that you can be utilizing? Do you have family and friends that can step in for certain things? So, you know, you're looking at those things, you're labeling them, you're categorizing them. And then you're really analyzing. So you're identifying those trends, you're identifying when are you really productive during your days, what are your recurrent habits, and you can start to reflect on, is this aligned with my priorities or is it rubbing up against something? Am I happy with how this looks? Am I not? This is a really effective tool to be able to take into supervision too and advocate for yourself using something like a time audit. You know, I'm spending this much time face to face. I'm spending this much time prepping. I'm spending this much time in meetings. Let's figure this out together, right? You can use that to start a conversation about what your work day looks like and what's most effective. So that pairs really well with something called energy mapping. Now, energy mapping is another means of tracking your time and paying attention to your time, but this helps us to find our most productive hours in the day. All of us, you know, we have our own circadian rhythm, and typically in people, it's roughly the same, but all of us have those preferences. Like, are you a morning person? Are you a night owl? Do you kind of have that like mid-afternoon dip in your energy where you're not feeling as cognitively sharp and energized? So what is it for you? So this allows you to start to track your time. Knowing what the most productive hours of your day are allows you to schedule things that are going to take the most cognitive time. It allows you to carve out the time that you need for deep work or important tasks. So you can avoid filling those precious productive hours with less important tasks, which might be better suited for some of those low energy times of the day. You're going to want to prioritize your most important work during your most productive hours. So these tasks, you know, when you're thinking about tracking, doing this tracking, and I'll show you an example on the next slide, you're also then going to want to think about the tasks that you have. What do you have to do every day? What do you have to do every week? Different tasks require different levels of energy and different levels of concentration. Tasks requiring fairly high energy, things like physical activity, difficult tasks that require a lot of focus, you might need extra time, right? Things that don't take extra energy to get started might be more appealing to do at other times of the day. So we also know that some of our tasks feed our energy. Like, think about that. What tasks boost you up? Like in your day-to-day, when do you feel energized? Is it like, you know, there's this one person that I meet with and that person always brings a smile to my face? Or when I leave supervision, I really feel pumped up. Or after this team meeting, I feel great because I feel really well supported. Versus what tasks zap your energy? For me, documentation is a zapper. That is an energy zapper. So what drains you? Is it making certain phone calls? Is it having to advocate with Social Security? Is it having to advocate through housing? You know, what are those draining tasks? So you want to start to pair tasks and activities that are energy boosters and energy zappers with that productive time. So here's an example. You know, we're thinking about those tasks on a continuum, things that feed our energy, things that drain our energy. We're also thinking about our energy peaks and valleys. So, you know, for some of us, we have these like high points. For me, that's right between like 10 and 12. This is a high energy point. You get me at 7:30 in the morning, I'm not going to be as upbeat. I'm not going to be as sharp. So where are your peaks and valleys? And then you're thinking about what are you going to plug in to different places. So you're going to want to play around with this a little bit. You know, can you catch a break at certain times during your day when you know it's a low energy day? You know, that's when I need to make sure that I'm eating something, or that's when I need to make sure I go stand outside for a couple minutes to like get that sunlight and vitamin D jolt. So if you look at some of these things, the yellow orange items are things that might take a lot of concentration and more energy. The blue things are things that are like low energy, low concentration tasks. And the green is like the moderate tasks, you know, concentration or alertness. And the things that have stars are zappers. So you code that. And then you're going to make like educated guesses on where you're putting these things in, right? So like conducting a workshop, I'm going to want to do that between 10 and 12. Whereas things like emptying a dishwasher, I can do that in a low energy, low concentration. It's not high cognitive load. So think about that for both work and school. And you can start to color code these X's, you know, so you can kind of plug them in, highlight, like, this is when I need to put the important meetings, you know, whatever's going to make sense for you, and then play around and see what works. But you're gonna, you know, those energy zapper tasks are gonna have to get done, but it's a matter of like, where are you gonna put them? What makes the most sense for you? All right. Another great method that I love is a technique called the Pomodoro method. And this is really great for those of us who are either procrastinators or those of us who feel like we have so many things on our to-do list and we don't know where to start. And it's really, really hard to get started because we feel so overwhelmed. Pomodoro forces us to pick one thing, and it helps us to get started immediately. And that reduces the pain, right? Because usually it's the getting started that can be so hard. And this builds internal motivation. So the beauty of this is that you're splitting your time into 25 minutes. So if you think you have this big, horrible thing that you have to get done and it feels overwhelming and large, and you have 1,000 things and you don't know where to start, pick one thing and say, I'm just going to stick with this for 25 minutes. And you're going to use a timer. And when that 25 minutes is up, that's it. You're going to take a break. And this technique works really well because it externalizes discipline. Our willpower is limited. There's only so much we can do. There's only so much we can force ourselves to do. And that uses up a lot of energy, having to focus on that. But when we're using a timer, it really takes that burden off and it places it on an external machine. So it doesn't, you know, the timer isn't going to get tired. The timer isn't going to think it wants to do something else. You are just going to be able to externalize that. The short intervals also make it feel less intimidating and less overwhelming to get going on something, right? Like, I can do this for 20 minutes. I can do this for 25 minutes. It's fixed. It doesn't feel so open-ended and like, oh, this is going to zap all my day. So it helps us to fight the pull of distraction, because it's 20 minutes or 25 minutes and something enters your mind. Nope, I'm 20 more minutes, or I've got 15 minutes left on this. And it forces you to kind of write it down, but maintain your focus. So what you do here is you get a timer, whether it's your cell phone, a computer timer, a little egg timer. It's called Pomodoro because the college student that developed this method was an Italian student. Pomodoro is tomato. They used a tomato timer. I always had an egg timer in my house when I was a kid that my mom would set when I had to like clean something or do chores. So you grab a timer, you're going to pick one task, just one thing from your to-do list, no multitasking. And you are going to do nothing else until that timer goes off. Now, the key with this is you are going to, you know, and as Patty was talking about mindfulness, right? You are able to say like, okay, a distraction is coming into my mind. You can be aware that there's a trigger, right? So then something pops in, oh, I've got to call that person, or you get an alert on your cell phone or you hear your email chime. but you are not going to do anything with that. You are going to notice it. You can jot it down on a Post-it, but you are not going to do that email. You are not going to go and make that phone call. You are going to stick with this one thing for your 20 minutes or 25 minutes. And then when you're done, you're going to step away. You're going to take a 5-minute break. And the breaks are important. You want to stand up, you want to stretch, you want to take a drink, you want to get a snack, you want to stretch your legs, and then you want to get back to it. And you want to repeat that 1 to 3 more times, depending on the task. And when you get to about 4 of these cycles, you want to take a longer 30-minute break. And again, the breaks are really important. If we try to do too much, too long, our bodies and our brains start to shut us down. We are not going to be as effective. It is better to work in these intervals than to try to plow through for 2 hours without a break. So I encourage you to try this one as a quick and easy, low risk, low pressure one. Another one here in moving into, or this is kind of like borderline structure and protection, is to think about how you are scheduling yourself. If possible, have a buffer between appointments. Don't back things up hour to hour. You know, don't have a 1 o'clock, a 2 o'clock, and a 3 o'clock appointment, because chances are you're going to set yourself up for rushing and for the unexpected. So if you can have a 5 to 15-minute buffer, even in that buffer, if it's just that you step outside for a minute, you go for a walk, you have a snack, you use the bathroom. How many times has your day gotten so busy that you don't even get to use the bathroom or eat something, right? Right? So make sure that you're building in that time and protect it. Block it out just like you would a session, because you are just as important as the people you are supporting. And if you are not entering into that next appointment, you know, if you've got hunger pains and a full bladder, you are going to be a little bit distracted, a little bit less comfortable, maybe not as empathetic. You know, you want to be fully present. And in order to do that, you have to meet your own needs. So if that's building in a 5 to 15-minute buffer throughout the day, do it and take a lunch break. Again, if you're doing a time audit and you're realizing, I haven't had a lunch break in the past 10 days, you know, let alone gone to the bathroom, something has to shift, because you are going to be heading toward burnout and that, you know, that crispy, unaffected approach. So, you know, it's not always easy to build these things in, you know, whether it's that we get so backed up in email, but following up on email is not a break. So really think about how you're using that time. Build that in. And then we want to avoid multitasking, you know, to start to protect our time. So it's really tempting to multitask, especially when we have a lot of things on our to-do list. How many times do you start one project and then you jump to another project and then you go over here and do this? And the next thing you know, you've had like 4 things partially done, but nothing's actually completed. So that gets really challenging. Multitasking can be the enemy of deep work too. We really want to, some tasks require sustained attention. We want to make sure that we are able to do that deep work. When we are really stressed and overwhelmed, it is very alluring to multitask. But there is a growing body of research that demonstrates that it's ineffective. It leads to an increased experience of stress when we're multitasking. And then the other thing that research indicates on this, which is a bit troubling, is that when we're frequently multitasking and focusing our attention only on small tasks for short periods of time, our brain gets used to that and functions accordingly, making it even more challenging to sustain attention and to do the deep work over time. So again, we bring in that first presentation in. We want to use mindfulness to be aware of this, to recognize I'm feeling a pull toward something else. Recognize it, but don't get pulled. And again, pairing Pomodoro works really well to start to avoid multitasking. Commit to the one thing that you're focusing on. Yeah, practice, practice, practice. Absolutely. So this one is where I'm going to start shifting about the Eisenhower matrix. Now, I alluded to this when we were talking about the structure. This is something that I've included in kind of that protection phase of this. But when we have our to-do list and all of the things that we have to do are listed, we've got our master list, but we have to start thinking about the type of attention the items on that list get, right? Not everything is going to rise to the same level of attention on our to-do list. So we have to think about, you know, what needs to get done today, what needs to get done this week, what needs to get done next week, what's long-term goal. So we want to work off our master list. And then again, we're prioritizing, we're thinking about then that monthly list, the weekly list, the daily list. But we also have to think about important versus urgent tasks. So important activities are things that have outcomes that lead us to achieving our goals. And these goals might be personal, professional, work-related goals. And then urgent things are the things that demand our immediate attention. These are usually connected to somebody else's goals. They're often the things that we spend a lot of time on, though, in our day, and they demand attention because if we don't deal with them, typically the consequences are immediate. So I want you to think about some of the items on your to-do list. What is important and what is urgent? And where do you tend to spend your time? So the Eisenhower matrix is a good way to start to classify these things and really get it down on paper and see it laid out in front of you. So this is what the Eisenhower matrix looks like. And this is using the urgent and important principle, thinking about your priorities, determine which things are important and which are essentially just distractions. This really helps us to use time effectively, not just efficiently. And then we're able to schedule things, again, based on urgency and importance. So we've got our important category and our urgent category. Some things are urgent and important. And those are often going to kind of rise. Like these are critical things that we have to do. Then there are things that are important, but less urgent. And a lot of times those have to do with your own kind of personal path, your own wellness, your own relationships. It's like, right, I can save that. It's important to me, but I can save that for later because it's not here, you know, immediately I need to do this thing. So this tends to be important goals. And if we're not careful, these can get lost. And then we have things that are less important, but often urgent. This is the emails, the phone calls, the meetings, the reports, the notifications. And then we have less important and less urgent. Often these are distractions, the time wasters, the scrolling, the chatting, you know, with coworkers, the binging, and sometimes these creep up because we feel burnt out or we are not taking enough breaks and we exhaust ourselves. And then we kind of just like, our brain's like, well, you didn't take a break. So now I'm gonna go down this other path. So we want to think about what that looks like and where that's coming from. So here's how to tackle each of these. We've got the urgent and important. We got to do it. We got to do these things as soon as possible. It requires flexibility. You can't always plan for these things. Less urgent, but important. We have to decide on where our priorities are, what our values are, and we have to schedule them because these things are going to be the things that fill you up, that motivate you, that keep you going. But they get pushed. So be careful of this section. Less important and urgent. Can you delegate it? Who can handle this? Is it getting in the way? Who are your supports and resources? Who else can help with this task? For those of us who have a hard time asking for help, this is going to be a skill that you're going to have to practice. Seek supervision or mentorship around it if needed. And then less important, less urgent. try to avoid it, try to stop it, or try to schedule it. You know, save it for that low energy time of your day, right? You know, okay, this window, I'm not super effective. So I'm going to give myself permission to take a break during that window. That's when I'm going to go eat my lunch. I'm going to use the bathroom. I'm going to get some fresh air. I'm going to take my dog for a walk, like whatever it is, try to use those things. Or during your commute, you know, and could you put on that audiobook? Can you put on some, you know, do your time wasters on a commute? Can you do your time wasters when you are waiting to meet a person for an appointment and they show up 10 minutes late? You know, use that as your time waster then. So we want to, again, think real critically. We also want to take a PET approach. Now, the PET approach helps us to intentionally think about what we're saying yes and no to in our day, those things that creep up. So this, again, it borders on protection and structure. When there is a demand or a request on your time, we first want to pause. We don't want to just say yes right away. We want to pause, whether that's like taking a drink of water and giving a moment if we're having a live conversation, or just sitting on that email for a minute. So we want to wait and not immediately respond. Then we want to evaluate, does this align with my priorities and my workload? Would saying yes impact something important? So if I say yes to this new thing, is it going to bump something from my important category off my calendar? If it's going to bump something that's important to you, then it might be something that you pass on for now, and that you have to say, you know, I really appreciate you asking,
Go up to,
but I can't do it right now.
click on audio settings and move your thingamajiggy all the way down.
If we could just have everyone mute, please, during the presentation, that would be appreciated.
Thanks, Amy.
Sorry, Brittany.
So you're going to want to think about that, and you're not going to want to bump those things because they're going to continue to get bumped, and then your needs are not going to be met because you're doing more for other people. So while we want to always, you know, we want to help, we want to jump in, or those opportunities sound so exciting, if they don't align with your values, if they don't align with your goals, and if you don't have the capacity, it's better to say, thank you so much for thinking of me. I have to pass right now. You know, please reach out in the future. So think about what that is, what it's going to take away from. And then think about like, what's personally important, what's professionally important, what's most likely to bring you a sense of peace, a sense of well-being, or a sense of relief. If this activity that you're going to say yes is not going to do that, is it necessary? And then T is for trust. And this is the piece we sometimes forget, because then we let the guilt creep in, right? Or that's that doubt, like, oh, I should have said yes, or oh, I feel really bad that I had to turn that person away, or I said yes to this and I wish I didn't. You got to go with it. You know, you're pausing, you're evaluating, you're making an informed decision. So trust yourself. Don't let the guilt, shake off the guilt. And if it is something you said yes to, then go back to that to-do list, go back to that priority list, and start to build it in so that you are efficient at getting it done. Okay. All right. So adaptation, moving into this, anticipate interruptions. So there's something really interesting called the implementation intentions. So we want to start, we know that these things happen. We know we have these hiccups and speed bumps that interrupt our day and our beautiful plan. But psychologists refer to this way of behaviorally responding as implementation intentions. These are highly effective at being able to facilitate goal achievement and keep you on task. An implementation intention is a self-regulatory strategy in the form of like if then that can lead to better attainment of your goals because you're planning for it. It can also help to create more useful habits and modify problematic behaviors of like being really reactive. So this specifies when, where, and how is going to happen. For example, if a coworker interrupts my scheduled time to work on my priority task, you know, this thing that I've set aside, I will explain and ask that we set a time to resume whatever they brought up. You know, oh, I'm really glad you popped in to see me. I would love to chat about this some more. Can we talk about it at 2 o'clock today? Or, you know, I need another 30 minutes to work on to finish up what I'm doing. So you are coming up with a plan in advance of how you're going to handle some of these situations. Lots of studies have shown that these implementation intentions are really effective for helping us to stick to our goals. Because it helps us with cues, right? And so this could even be something like your cell phone buzzing. When you hear your cell phone buzz or your email ding, that can be a trigger, right? So typically what we might do is we hear it and we need to right away go look at it. So if we're saying, you know, if my cell phone buzzes during this time, I am going to put it on mute and set it aside, or I'm going to set a do not disturb on my email alerts, whatever it is. So when this arises, I will respond in this way. We also, when it comes to adaptation, we want to pay attention to our inner voice and we want to weigh our consequences. So sometimes that procrastination can be a good thing. What is it telling you? Is it telling you that you're tired and you need a break? Is it telling you that this task is really ambiguous and unclear and I don't know where to start? Is it telling me that I need some supervision or guidance on this? Is it that I am really not fulfilled and satisfied and I don't like any of these job tasks? I'm ready for something more challenging. I'm ready for a shift. So think about what the messages are telling you and respond accordingly. Listen to that inner voice. And then also weigh the consequences of doing something versus not doing it. You know, if you really are procrastinating, think about it and write it down. What will happen if I don't get this done? Well, my performance evaluation is going to be impacted. My coworker is not going to be able to do their part of this project. If the answer is like, not much is going to happen, then it might not be important. It might not be something you need to work on right now, or it might be something that starts to come off of your to-do list. So if you're noticing a lot of perfectionism or procrastination, these are areas that you're going to want to seek support around. Use your supervisors, use your mentors, use therapy, your own wellness strategies, and really make sure you're taking time to prioritize self-care. Having that as an adaptation in this adaptation category helps you to be able to be more proactive in maintaining your energy level and your own time. So I want you to think about what strategy are you interested in trying, and then think about how you're going to assess your progress. How do you know if it's working? Just like when we set recovery plans, we always go back in and we want to assess and we want to think about, you know, what got in the way, what worked well, what might need to be changed. So it's all about trial and error and finding the approach that's best for you. You know, think about your why. What's holding you up here? Think about what type of strategy. Pick it and assess it. And then use a little self-compassion too. Be gentle on yourself. It is a work in progress, but having that greater awareness can really help you be more intentional and improve your productivity, efficiency, and time management. I do have a number of resources in the PowerPoint and lots of references if you wanted more information about anything I shared. My email address is also here, and you're welcome to reach out. Does anybody have any questions or want to share anything about their strategy or their approach before we wrap up?
I see Serena coming in with a question. Serena, you could put it in the chat if you like. You could unmute.
Hi, I didn't catch the email. I thought I saw it on a slide, but I was trying to screenshot it and I didn't see her email.
Sure thing. I'll put that slide back
There
up.
we
I'm also going to put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Welcome. And I
We
know
got
it was
some-
a lot to cram in.
We got some comments in the chat. People are really liking the Pomodoro technique. The
Pomodoro.
tomato technique.
It's a great one. It's because the beauty is in its simplicity.
I gotta say, Brittany, fabulous presentation. Your expertise in building these skills, so pragmatic, so appreciated. But I was feeling a little personally called out a few times. I'm like, she must have been observing me for the past week with the time wasters like TikTok, the mention of documentation as a time zapper. Very much resonated with me and gave me some good information on how to address those things. Let's see, Jillian, interested to try the energy mapping, especially since my day-to-day schedule conflicts so much with appointment and work. Ruth, I see your hand is up. Thank you, Jillian.
Yes, Brittany, thank you so much. Like Amy, I feel like I was called out a few times. So, but I really appreciate kind of the logic piece in terms of the executive functioning and kind of, when you think about how our brain works and where our decisions are made and things like that, like we really need to pay attention and focus. And so I really appreciate the information that you put out. And again, like Amy, I got called out and I got to do some work.
Well, that's, it's really what led me to be interested in this area and the topic is because I was looking for strategies. And the more I learned about it, and again, that it's the process component, it's how these things come together. It's just so interesting. And again, I catch myself doing this and it's a work in progress. It is not, I have all these strategies. It doesn't mean I'm always great at implementing them. And then I also catch myself when I'm in different slumps of like, oh no, I need to start putting different things. I need to go back to my strategies.
I think that's so crucial, Brittany, and when you're learning skills, implementing skills, to give yourself grace.
Oh, yeah.
We have a question from Gina. How long did it take you to master these skills?
Oh, like I said, I certainly have not mastered all of these skills. There are things that I definitely use more regularly. And what I notice is I'll have really good systems set up. And then there's a pivot, so right now I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and we are at the end of the school year, so like my summer is going to shift, or as my work demands shift, and I have to reassess of what's important to me. Where am I right now? Do I need more attention in some areas than other areas? So it's an ongoing process. I would encourage, though, if you're going to pick a strategy, pick something and really try to stick with it for a couple weeks before you say, oh, it's not for me. Like when you choose to do something, pick one thing so that you're not overwhelming yourself with lots of new things. Pick one, begin to fold it in. One of the things that I cut out of this presentation because of time was on habit stacking, which is a really great way to start to build in new skills and new habits and pairing that with things you already do. So rather than just revamping your entire time management system, start with one thing, fold it into the way that your day already flows, stick with it for a couple weeks, and then reevaluate if it's working or not.
That's great advice, not to take on everything all at once. Brittany, thank you so much for your very engaging and informative presentation, your passion on this topic, and helping practitioners to really learn about these skills for their own use as well as professional use in their service provision is really appreciated. To all our attendees, thank you for participating and engaging during the session. Can we give Brittany Stone a warm round of virtual applause for her outstanding presentation? Again, I'm looking forward to implementing some of these things. Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you, Amy.
We're going to take a 10-minute break. It's now an 8-minute break. We're going to come back at 11:30 for the next workshop with Dr. Lisa Lacan. And she'll be talking to us about time to thrive in our lane. Do you enjoy what you do? Enjoy your break, folks, and we'll come back at 11:30. Recorded. Everyone will receive a link to that recording. If you registered for the conference, you will get that email, as well as the PowerPoint slides from today's sessions. If you have any questions or comments during our third presentation for Dr. Lisa Lacan, please feel free to use the chat feature. You can send those questions directly to me as moderator or to the whole group, whatever feels good and right for you. Now we are going to see Lisa facilitate a session on time to thrive in your lane. Do you enjoy what you do? Dr. Lisa Lacan is a co-founder and director of Bless Ministries Incorporated, a nonprofit organization provides employment, workforce development services, and supports to individuals with disabilities, formerly incarcerated individuals, and other disadvantaged populations. She has a proven track record of securing and managing multiple grants from various sources, totaling over $12 million, designing and implementing innovative and effective programs, collaborating with external agencies and stakeholders to create positive outcomes for the communities that she serves. Dr. Lisa Lacan holds a PhD in psych rehab from Rutgers University and a certification as a rehab counselor. She has more than 24 years of experience in the social service nonprofit sector and is extremely passionate and dedicated to being a social entrepreneur, a mental health advocate who aims to empower and uplift urban communities through education, advocacy, and wellness. She is the founder and executive producer of Urban Tools for Change Network, a venue for residents who live in the urban community who would like to know more about mental health issues and how to achieve wellness and recovery goals. It is now my pleasure to welcome Dr. Lisa Lacan.
Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? Are you all ready to exercise right now? Do some jumping jacks? I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Sometimes when Amy reads that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me. But that is, and all of those years, I can honestly say it is time to thrive. So I'm going to, Amy, how do you want to do this with the PowerPoint presentation?
I believe you said you wanted to share your own screen, and that's
Okay.
perfectly fine. I'm going to stop share.
Okay.
And you can go ahead, Lisa.
All right. All right, so we are trying to thrive in this psychiatric rehabilitation world that we are in, which is very challenging at times. So how are we going to do this? So basically, we're going to discuss the strategies for enhancing skills, resilience, and professional growth, because this is why we are here. All right, so let's begin. So our objectives, number one, we are going to identify the why we are here. And sometimes that sounds a little elementary about, well, why? But I believe that question, why, is the foundation for a lot of things. Number two, we're going to understand the significance of empowering the psychiatric rehabilitation workers like myself and you all here. And then we're going to learn some practical strategies toward a pathway of wellness. So, number one, why are we here in this psychiatric rehabilitation space? So, number one, was it the path of least resistance? Meaning, you may have wanted to be a psychiatrist and you looked at the curriculum and you're like, oh no, I can't, nope, I am not going to medical school. I just don't have the bandwidth. Nope, too much for me, too much science. I can't deal with it. Nope. That's the path of least resistance. And then you found psychiatric rehabilitation. Or number two, are you an activist or do you advocate in the field? Meaning you are a peer, you have a loved one, you have been personally impacted by someone with a psychiatric disability, and now you're in it to win it. Or is it the money, treasury? Are we in it because we think, okay, this is a great way to earn a lot of money? Or are we in it because of happenstance? Now, I know for me, I found psychiatric rehabilitation based on happenstance. I had no idea about psychiatric rehabilitation at all until I stepped foot on Rutgers campus in my master's program for rehabilitation counseling. Never heard of psychiatric rehabilitation. So that was my why. It was happenstance, and I gravitated toward it, and I fell in love with the field. But each person has their own why, and it can be a combination of both. It could be perhaps happenstance and path of least resistance, meaning you didn't want to pursue becoming a medical doctor in a sense, but you didn't know what else was out there, and then you just so happened to stumble across this field. So this is the path, your PATH, path of least resistance, activist, advocate, treasury, or happenstance. Only you can answer that question. I can't answer it for you. For me, like I said, mine was definitely happenstance. But I think it's important because you start to identify now your why. It really sets the tone for your thoughts, your decisions, as well as your actions. So that is why. And one of the important things about the why is, and I tell people prior to doing their defense, getting their doctorate, is you have to defend your decisions. And they ask, why did you use this method? Why did you use this theory? Why? And you have to be able to own your why, all right? All right, so the importance of empowerment. Why is it, see, there's the why again. Why is it important to empower people? And what does it mean in this field of psychiatric rehabilitation? Hold on for a second. Empowerment actually means the authority or power given to someone to do something. And isn't that what psychiatric rehabilitation is all about? Empowering our consumer, our client, our patient to engage in life as they ought, to engage in a recovered life, to give them the tools they need to be successful in whatever domain that they want to be in. And that's the importance of empowerment. So if we are not empowered as a workforce, how can we successfully empower the consumer that we work with or the client that we work with? So what we want to do is, number one, improved job satisfaction. Now, improved job satisfaction goes both ways. As a workforce, we want improved job satisfaction, but also in working with the consumer, we would like for them to have improved job satisfaction as well. And then we would like to see better client outcomes. We would like to see employment, our clients become employed. We would like our clients or consumers to have suitable housing, as well as appropriate education opportunities, and for them to be socially engaged in the normal setting of life. So this is why we are here to empower them, but we need to be empowered also. All right, so which is interesting. So challenges in psychiatric rehabilitation. These are just some of the challenges I thought about, and you could probably think of more challenges depending on the environment that you're in. So one of the challenges that I thought of, which was number one on my list, is high stress situations and emotional labor. Now, Amy did not say, but I used to work at a nonprofit agency, and I worked with residents, A+ housing, and it was 24-hour housing. And these were consumers that were discharged from Trenton Psychiatric Hospital. So we had about 30 or so residents. It was a 24-hour housing environment. And I have to say, one of the most high stress situations was Hurricane Sandy. Do you all remember Hurricane Sandy? It was like, oh my gosh, it was very stressful because not only did I have to relocate everyone in my housing situation, I had residents that were sex offenders, and because of that, they could not have shelter in the school. So we had to contact their parole officer, and we had to shuttle them to a parole facility. So all of these things were happening, but you know what? It was interesting because my program director at the time, Kimberly Higgs, she's on here, we always had a plan just in case something happened. So I had a landline. I bought a landline. And the landline that I had, and I did this intentionally, it had Snow White on the phone. It was a Snow White phone. And I told my staff, I said, if we use this Snow White phone, that means we have no electricity in a sense, and it's going to make the situation a tad bit lighter. All right. So high stress situations, that's number one. The best kept secret. This is another challenge in psychiatric rehabilitation. Number three, limited resources. Number four, internal organizational constraints. And last, a toxic work environment. But none of us in this conference have toxic work environments, right? Or do we? Do we? I don't know. All right, so let's go. All right, strategy number one. How do you decompress from high stress situations or emotional labor? Now, I shared a snippet about the phone because when we did use the phone, it added levity to the situation because here we are, adults using this Snow White landline phone. And it just was kind of funny thinking about it. But that's how, in that situation, we did that. But practical things that are free, they don't cost you anything. Number one, breathing techniques. Breathing techniques are very, very underrated and important. Personal story. My daughter was going through a mental health crisis, and she called us on the phone, and she was just becoming very hysterical. So rather than saying, calm down, because people don't like hearing calm down, I said, okay, I need you to breathe. Now, this is a principle of psychiatric rehabilitation, tell, show, do. I need you to breathe. That was the tell. I'm going to show you how to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Hold it for 8 seconds, but I need you to do that for at least 4 times. And I need you to do that. That's the tell, show, do. So she did it. And I encourage you right now to do it where you're sitting. Just breathe in, out, in, out. Doesn't that feel better? I mean, really, when you think about it, it feels so much better. One, you're allowing more oxygen in your brain. And two, you're thinking about breathing and you are leaving everything else out. And with my daughter, I wanted her to be quiet. I'm going to be honest. I needed her to be quiet, so I asked her to breathe. You know, I didn't want to say, shut up. I didn't want to say, be quiet. I just breathe, breathe, you know, just breathe. So when you get in a situation like that, even for yourself or your consumers, don't say calm down. We have to do the principle of psych rehab, tell, show, do. I need you to breathe, just. And then when they're counting and you intentionally tell them to count, they're busy focusing on the numbers and counting that everything else is gone. and they're not able to talk, they're not able to speak, it's a peaceful environment for at least 32 seconds. I'm telling you, it works all the time. And then number 2, taking time off from the stressful environment. Now, that does not only mean vacation, going to St. Martin or Florida, all right? I'm talking about things that can be free. Walking around the block, getting fresh air. Now, I understand in some communities, it may not be too safe to walk around the block, but just to remove yourself from your office, walking up and down your hallway, doing something to remove yourself from that office, even if it's going to the restroom and you're not even using the restroom, just getting away. Washing your hands with water, putting water on your face just to get away. And at the same time, you can have your breathing exercise with that. It's very, very important. Taking time off from the stressful environment. You have to do that. Number 3 is to exercise. Now, that doesn't mean that you do the Richard Simmons thing, 20 minutes. You may not have to do that, or you may not want to do that, but I definitely encourage you all to walk somewhere. Walk, jog, get moving, do something. Even if you're in your chair, you can do stuff like this. You can do this. And you still want to incorporate your breathing, because it's very, very important. And then I have to say, there are some tools out there where you can exercise while sitting down. Have you seen it looks like you're on a bike and you can work with your core and you can do that while at the same time at your desk, if you are not able to remove from your desk. I know some jobs, especially if you're a nurse, sometimes you may not be able to get away, but definitely during your breaks, I highly encourage you, do not eat your lunch at your desk. That is not healthy, because what you're doing is basically, you're not able to eat your food properly, digest, because you're picking up the phone, doing all, it's just remove yourself. In that A+ housing where I used to work, it was in Perth Amboy, and it was beautiful walking down on the pier. There was a dock where you saw like the boats and stuff like that, the beautiful homes. I did that. And then sometimes I would park my car there also, and it was just very peaceful and tranquil. So definitely try to think about that. And I also tell some of my consumers who say, well, I'm not really into jogging, or it's too cold, or it's too hot. This is one thing that I will always tell, and I tell this to family members, I tell this to friends, I share this information with my clients, the consumers. You can walk in the mall. Walking in the mall is free. And guess what the mall has? They have an air conditioner and they have a heating system. They have water. They have a place where you can sit, a place where you can eat, a place where you can go to the bathroom, and you can even drink water for free. All of that is in the mall. Take advantage of it. Take a walk in the mall. I know a lot of elderly groups, they're called mall walkers, and the mall opens up for them like around 6 o'clock in the morning, and they're just there walking the mall. Now, you don't have to go there at 6 o'clock in the morning. The mall is open all day. So you can just go walking. You can walk up the steps, you can walk down the steps, or you can take the escalator up the steps and just walk down the steps. You can create your own routine for this. But one of the things that I highly recommend is do not have an open door policy. this is just my opinion about open door policies. Open door policy does not mean your door is literally open. It's a concept. Open door policy means that you are available anytime for anyone at any moment. Like that is so draining. That did not work for me. And I guess now it doesn't work for pharmacists because pharmacists, they're closed from 12 to 1 or 12 to 12:30. If you go to LabCorp and get blood work, they're closed between 12 and 1. They're not answering the phone. They're not opening the door, nothing, because they understand the importance of you cannot be available all the time. A lot of truckers, because they were driving excessively, they did not take a break. The union had to force them, listen, you have to take a break. So when you see a lot of truckers taking breaks, it's because the union has forced them, you have to take a break. Because what was happening? Car accidents, insurance rates were increasing, liability issues. So these things are important. It's really important to understand that in the field and in the work that we're in, that we have to, just like in the airplane, we have to take care of ourselves first before we are able to give to someone else. That's strategy number one. Strategy number two, oh, this one is a big one. We have to remove the best kept secret phenomenon. When I walk into a room and I do a conference and I ask people, please let me see a show of hands of people familiar with or know about psychiatric rehabilitation. It's crickets, just like that. It's like, what? What's psychiatric rehabilitation? What is that? No one knows who we are except the 94 people and maybe some others in this conference. We do not do a very good job of marketing ourselves, what we do. So I looked at the Facebook of the psychiatric rehabilitation, and I looked at other social media platforms, and I didn't really see a presence. We have to do a better job of addressing who and what we are, because being known as the best kept secret is not good. And I'll tell you why a little later. So, number one, we have to market more effectively via social media platforms. And I know I was against social media at one point in time, like, oh my gosh, everybody's on social media, but we can't escape it. No one is going to read letters through the mail, postcards. When was the last time you all received a postcard? I mean, greetings from Florida, a postcard. Who has gotten a postcard in the mail within the last 5 years? But you see where they are on social media. That is the new postcard. So we have to figure out, how can we market more effectively? Because let me tell you, with COVID, and I know within the Black community, the number of suicidal ideations, the number of attempts, and unfortunately, the number of successes has increased. There's something there. We are not mentally well. We're not mentally well, and people need our tools to assist them. But if we are the best kept secret, how are we really reaching those people that need us the most? So we have to change that mindset. We have to market more effectively. And we have to take advantage of AI, artificial intelligence. Why do I say that? Number one, AI is not going anywhere. And AI, in my opinion, is assistive technology of today for people with abilities that aren't, have a disability. We've been using assistive technology for the longest time in working with people with disabilities. Think about the programs like JAWS, Job Access with Speech. That would be considered artificial intelligence. And what that program does for people who have lost their vision, it speaks for them, it outputs Braille, it types for them. We've been doing that for the longest time. But what we have to do now is with artificial intelligence, you can create logos with artificial intelligence. You can create a blog. So say, for instance, if you need to do a blog once a week, you can type in stuff, put it through Grammarly, because that's artificial intelligence, put it through Chat GPT, that's artificial intelligence, and it spews back to you, things that are correct. Your grammar is correct, things of that nature. So rather than spending an hour or 2 hours, like, okay, is this the correct punctuation mark? Is this the correct, how do you do? It cuts down your time. It really does. It cuts down your time. Now, I am not saying to use artificial intelligence to write a paper or your dissertation. Don't do that. Listen, Dr. Lisa is going on record to say, don't do that. I'm only talking about a blog, okay? A blog. Don't do that. But we have to embrace artificial intelligence technology because it is going nowhere. And now what we have to do is, how can artificial intelligence, AI, how can we utilize it to really assist our consumer in having a recovered life? That's another conference. I'm just throwing that out there. All right. And then also we need to secure client and consumer testimonials to highlight, because they are the ones that are benefiting from this. They are the ones that can say, you know what? This approach really assisted me. I came from the hospital. I moved to or in transitional housing. From that, I have stable employment. From that, I haven't been hospitalized in 3 years. That's great. But oftentimes, I'm going to be honest, what I see, and I do see some testimonials, I definitely see some testimonials, but I see more personnel highlights than testimonials. I really don't want to see, in a sense, that Clara, who's employed with ABC agency, is doing this. That's fine. I want to see some personal testimonies of consumers that we have assisted from the hospital to permanent housing, from permanent housing to suitable employment. That's the stuff that makes people say, you know what? Let me find out more about this psychiatric rehabilitation, since I've never heard of it before. And lastly, we need to network more. We need to network out of our field, in a sense. We have to do. Now, for me, I'm going to be honest, I do not like networking. I just feel like I don't know. Sometimes it's like you have to put on this charade and do, I don't like it, but I know it needs to be done, because now I have the mindset of I could meet someone and vice versa, where we can assist in what we are doing collectively. And when it comes to networking, it's about me not thinking about me, getting out of my zone of feeling and being awkward, but really sharing with the world what you have or what I have to provide. Because psychiatric rehabilitation, we have an awesome service. It's a dynamic approach, but it's the best kept secret, which is no good. So we have to spread the word, definitely. Talk with your friends, your family. So say, for instance, if your family asks, what do you do? Oh, I work with so-and-so clients. Well, that's not really expressing what you do and the approach that you take. Start really communicating with them and giving them the highlights and the wonderful attributes of what you provide to consumers that really assist them. Because at the end of the day, we are really change makers. We definitely are. And we need to be proud of that. And the whole world needs to know who we are and what we do. All right, strategy 3, limited resources be gone. All right, so because we are the best kept secret, sometimes this affects our resources. So what do we have to do? We have to network by engaging in more lobbying activities. That's the thing. Listen, we have to, gotta rub shoulders with the politicians. Sometimes, you know, people say it's a dirty job, but we have to, because I have to be honest. My agency, Blessed Ministries, we've been around for 25 years, and there are some politicians that have been with us the entire time, because what we do is near and dear to their hearts. It's not a Democrat thing, Republican thing, it's a human thing. And we have to get over political affiliation. We have to humanize what we do. So we need to engage in more lobbying activities. We need to increase our fundraising activities as well. That's a very important thing. How can we increase funding for this? And everything ties into also the marketing. Because when people see those testimonials, they may say, you know what? I'm not able to give my time, but I can give $10, I can give $5, I can do whatever. We have to have strategic, intentional fundraising activities. And then the next one is we have to recruit trustees and volunteers who are passionate about the mission. This is so important, especially the trustees, because they can guide the ship to your agency and for your agency, as well as volunteers. Because what the volunteers will do is they will help spread the word. They can remove some of those work items that are seen as a little bit mundane, whereas we can give more time to the consumer. You can delegate those activities and those tasks to volunteers. And then we need to recruit staff who are, number one, trainable or presently skilled. And that's very important, especially the trainable part, because a lot of us have been in the field for a very long time. It's important for us to present ourselves as mentors, to reach back to the next generation so that they can take over, because our generation, especially my generation, Generation X, in 10 years, I would say, we're going to leave the workforce. We're going to be gone. So if we don't train the next generation effectively of psych rehab workers, who's going to do it? I don't know. So it's up to us. And then we have to have skilled workers. And oftentimes the skill working comes through attending conferences like this, workshops, going through different trainings. So we have to maintain those things. So the limited resources be gone. That's how we can increase those resources. because oftentimes the politicians, they're the ones that write the policies. They're the ones that write the policies for those funding avenues to happen. And then, and I'm going to say this, sometimes those policies, because you have a great relationship with the person, they are just earmarked for you and your organization. Okay, so that is true. Now, 5 reasons why, and I put in nonprofits fail because, you know, in psych rehab, it's state-run hospitals. We have nonprofit organizations. So it's a couple of things, but I'm just really focusing on nonprofit right now because that is my wheelhouse. And I know when it comes to social services, most of the social services programs are nonprofit. Lack of a plan. So if you don't have a solid mission statement, a solid vision for your organization, unfortunately, you are doomed to fail. So you have to make certain that the mission and the vision statement is appropriately articulated to the staff. You definitely have to. And then you have unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations look like this. All right, so I just started my organization a year ago, and I'm going to apply for a federal grant for $2.4 million. Unless that's earmarked for me, I'm not touching it because I know that the scope is too large. Number 2, I don't have a track record of proven success, of proven outcomes to even think that I would be awarded that. So that's unrealistic expectation. Number 3, lack of leadership. Who is the leader? How does the leader perform? Is the leader out there lobbying? Is the leader out there networking? Is the leader out there making certain that we're highlighted in social media world? How does the leader operate? Because an agency is as good as its leader. That is so important. And then the 4th one, which is like, that should be number 1, no money. That reminds me of the song, that song, money makes the world go around, the world go around. Unfortunately, it does. We can't escape it. All right, how are you going to pay for your staff? How are you going to pay for your overhead costs, electricity bills, you know, how are you going to pay for supplies? How they cost money. Now, unless you are funded, you know, by someone or whatever, it costs money to effectively run an operation in order for you to thrive. Because people say, well, you know what, I can thrive without money. Yes, but your options are very limited. You have very limited options. I think for me, I would rather have 5 options rather than 1. That's how, especially when we're dealing with humans, because it's important. It really is. And then the last one is failure to adapt. Again, because we are entering into a world where fax machines are no longer used in some industries, everything is on a cloud. It is very challenging for us to keep up if we haven't mentally adapted to say, you know what, I need to embrace this technology. Now, depending on your agency and depending on your policy, there's certain things we can or cannot do. But what showed us certain things that we thought we weren't able to do, but is now acceptable. The pandemic, COVID. There were certain things that we could not transmit electronically. But guess what? With COVID, we had no choice. It changed everything. I mean, it's like, oh, who knew? Okay. It changed everything. So now we have to adapt to what is currently happening in this world, in this communication space, how we communicate, when we communicate, what are the tools of communicating? So now when people say, oh, well, we can't really do that. Well, did you do that with when the pandemic was happening? Well, yes. Okay, so what changed? I don't know. I don't know. So just think about that. And that's from the foundation. The next strategy, strategy number 4, in order to thrive, we have to remove internal organizational constraints. All right, so in order for us to thrive, how is our work environment? Are we working around supportive folks or not? I can honestly say my experience at that nonprofit as the program manager was fantastic, because it was a space for the support was there, definitely. The camaraderie was there, and we worked very well together, very well. And some of the things that you can do is have recognition programs. And sometimes that may seem a little cheesy, having the person like employee of the month or whatever, but sometimes it's nice to give people their flowers while they're living, especially if they go above and beyond, especially if they do a great job, to say, you know what, you did very well, and I am rewarding you as a result because you really didn't have to do that. People see that, people understand. It may change their mindset or maybe not, but it's nice to recognize people for what they do, especially if they do an awesome job. And then team building activities. Again, some of these things seem like, oh my gosh, this is so corny and hokey, but it's important because these team building activities can translate and transfer to working with the consumer. And in these team building activities, it's interesting that you can identify who you work well with, who you don't, as well as how can we improve this work environment? Because not for nothing, consumers can pick up on our work environment. If the place is stressful, if the people don't like one another, they can pick up on that. And that may impact their overall recovery journey. Also, I talked briefly about this, but mentorship. Mentorship is very important. It's giving back. It's giving back to those that are going to be next. Don't be intimidated. Don't feel jealous. Don't, like I said, in 10 years, Generation X is going to be done. And then it's time for the next generation. And these years are going by super duper fast. And then we have to have continuous professional development. That means professional development, CEU credits. We have to do that so that we can continue to understand the best practices that are coming. What is the newest evidence-based practice? How are they rolling it out? How can I use this? Because at the end of the day, these are things that you may want to incorporate when it's time for funding. Incorporate that in your grant application, that you are familiar with this approach, or that you are familiar with this approach and you are utilizing this approach with the outcomes. So that's important as well. That's strategy number 4. And then strategy number 5, remove toxic behaviors. How toxic is your work environment? If you look at my LinkedIn page, I talk about this quite often because unfortunately, I was in a very toxic work environment years ago. It was awful. And the reason why was because of these 3 things. I didn't feel as if I was seen, I didn't feel safe, and I did not feel valued. And guess what? These 3 things, this is what we need as well as the consumer. The consumer wants to be seen, feel safe, and valued. And you have to ask yourself, do I believe I am seen in my work environment? Do I feel safe? And or am I valued? If the answer is no on either one, that is a toxic work environment. And then this is how we measure success, because I'm going to piggyback off of the toxic work environment. We measure success or the impact of empowerment strategies by surveys. Surveys are very, very helpful, especially if they are anonymous, because people are going to be very honest, typically when a survey is anonymous. Survey the consumer, survey the staff, survey the C-suite leaders. Everyone is surveyed. It makes a difference. And then performance reviews. Performance reviews are very important because it sets the stage up for what's next to come. How can I improve? And I say this, that performance reviews is not only for frontline staff, it's also for those in the C-suite. How is your manager working with you? What goals did you have at the beginning of the year that you're still trying to meet or that you have met and exceeded? These are things that are very important in client outcomes. So one of the things that I said I was going to talk about, how toxic is your work environment? One of the things is the surveys are important. Listen to what these surveys say. Do not discard them. Understand and don't take it personal. Say, for instance, if it's not an anonymous survey and this survey has a person's name on it, don't retaliate. This is that person's truth. It is time for you to meet with that person one-on-one to say, okay, how can this situation be better? And then the last one is client outcomes or consumer outcomes. Receive surveys from them also. And then what you do is you have these metrics that you can identify to say, okay, how long has this person been out of the hospital? How long has this person lived in a housing facility? How long has this person had employment? These are things that you want to measure, because at the end of the day, it really lets you know and your staff know how well you're doing. All right. Like I said, frontline staff should not be the only staff reviewed. All right. Questions?
Thank you so very much, Lisa, for sharing your passion and expertise on career counseling and this piece on entrepreneurship and building work environments that foster gratitude and just a healthy work culture.
Mm-hmm.
We do have one question in terms of what are some common signs that indicate misalignment between one's job and their personal values? There's
All
some
right.
common signs.
All right. So one of the things I always tell people is you want to research the company to see if it aligns with your personal values first before you even interview with them. So say, for instance, if a company is all about chicken, and you research that and you know chicken is not, that's not you, but the money, oh my gosh, the money, $250,000 a year. What's your priority? That's your why. Why are you interviewing for this job? Is it the money? And you know the chicken is not, So you have to identify your why. So for me, and I tell people, one of the things that you have to do, you have to research the company even prior to you interviewing with them to see if it's worth your time. Sometimes I tell people to interview just to get into the practice of interviewing, but if it's not aligned initially, don't do it. Now, if you're already in the job and say, for instance, they change the mission, they may change something, my indication is, and it goes in different steps. Number one, I think about leaving. Step number two, I don't want to get out of my bed to go to work. Step number three, I start calling out to go to work. Step four, now I'm perusing any job opportunities available. And then I start to launch out there with my resume. So this is an internal thing that you need to deal with. But I would definitely say, if you have those steps and those stages, that is a way that you can tell this place is not aligned with me.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa, for, again, your expertise, for your time. NJPRA is so grateful for your contribution to the conference and all of the work that you're doing in the field of psych rehab. Please, folks, let's give Dr. Lisa Lacan a huge round of virtual applause. And again, our biggest gratitude for your informative and comprehensive presentation today. So very appreciated. We are now going to transition to one of my most favorite parts of the spring conference, which is the NJPRA Recognition Awards. I know Dr. Lisa Lacan just spoke about strategy number 4, which is recognition. We are going to do just that in our own little community today. This is really a special time when we get to honor and celebrate the exceptional contributions and achievements within the community of psych rehab. So I am going to introduce our Executive Director, Kimberly Higgs, to present our 2024 NJPRA Recognition Awards. And I will get those slides up in just a second.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for being with us today. We've had just a wonderful morning of focusing on ourselves, and we deserve that, right? I know I was one of those hand raisers for time management, and well, as many of us were. There was so much this morning to think about and to think about and take with us beyond the workplace and beyond our careers. With that, we had a large group of individuals nominated this year. Of those who are recognized, some of our recognition awardees were actually nominated by more than one of their colleagues. So that was pretty neat. We don't have that happen very often, and we had it happen twice this time around. But with that, I am just going to jump right in because we have lots of folks, not a lot of time, and many accolades. So Amy, have you got the screen, or have I? Okay, wonderful. So
one thing I do want to say, Kim, before you start, my apologies.
Yes.
Folks, please feel free in the chat to celebrate our psych rehab colleagues, putting in messages of encouragement, emojis, whatever feels good and right for you, but let's celebrate our coworkers today.
Yes, thank you, Amy. And so the first person that we're recognizing today is Yasmin Alexander, who is with Bridgeway, and she is a vocational specialist. at Bridgeway. And she is also a recent recipient of her master's degree in social work. So Yasmin's colleagues, and she was nominated by her supervisor, Dawn Hogue, share with us that she connects easily with persons served, that people respond so well to her approach, so much so that people ask if Yasmin can be the person to come work with them, but don't tell anybody else on the team. She advocates for everything from basic needs to making sure people get the care that they need, whether that be hospital care, physical health care, whatever they need. She runs groups and she inspires people with empowerment and sincerity. She is so genuine in her concern for everyone that she works with. She has been an asset to her team in so many ways. And in doing what she does, the way she does it, she challenges her peers to do better. She brings new ideas and suggestions, and she is, as Dawn says, the embodiment of what someone in our field should aspire to do. So congratulations, Yasmin. Continuing along, the next person that we are recognizing is Melissa Campos, and Melissa is also with Bridgeway. She is in the WRIST program. She's a licensed practical nurse, and she is key to the team for all of the feedback and information that she shares and provides, and sometimes reminds people about when it comes to medical appointments and healthcare needs. And as we know, right, the needs change and they can change frequently. And Melissa is always quick to adjust her schedule, to volunteer her time, to change and increase her availability to ensure that the needs of those individuals, particularly those with the more severe healthcare risks and needs, get these supports and the services that they need to help them towards their journey to health and wellness. She demonstrates cultural sensitivity as a person-centered approach, and she provides individualized care to support the growth of all persons served. Her experience, energy, and passion have made her an invaluable asset to the team and persons served. Congratulations, Melissa. Next up is Michael Coyle from CSP, and Michael is a resource specialist. And as shared with us by his supervisor, Nicole, not only does he strive every day to incorporate the core principles of psych rehab into the work that he does, but he's really established a niche for himself as the go-to person for resources throughout CSP&J. As it says here, if Michael has a need, or if a person has a need, Michael always finds a way to meet it. He strives to educate everyone that he encounters, and he's particularly skilled at working with some of the most challenging persons to serve there at the agency. And he does that through thorough coordination and integration with other providers. He's a strong advocate, and he's dedicated to ensuring that everyone is well informed about services, resources, so that they are able to build on their strengths and foster their self-determination in their journey towards wellness. So congratulations, Michael. Also, next up from CSP and nominated by Adriana Chazan is Kelly McGurkin. Kelly's a support worker. She's been with CSP since 2021. And one of the things that really jumped out to me when I looked at the nomination document is that Kelly is a force to be reckoned with. A kind force, but a force nonetheless. Adriana also shared with us that in addition to her work in the her work at CSP as a psychiatric rehabilitation practitioner, she's also served our country. She's been in the armed services. She was a member of the U.S. Army, having been deployed to the Middle East. So she's strong, she's independent, and she is well prepared through all of the experiences that she's had to be ready to do the work that she needs to do. She educates people, she supports and gives people the dignity of letting them know that they can make their decisions, of supporting those decisions, and helping people then afterwards with what are sometimes not the outcome that they might have expected, or some consequences they might not have wanted to face, but she's always there for them. Kelly has such compassion. She gives from her heart. And as we said, she gives people the dignity of making their own decisions. She walks with each individual, modeling how they can achieve their life goals. And she helps people to have the confidence in their abilities and to feel their own power to make changes and to realize that they are capable of attaining their goals and dreams. So congratulations, Kelly. The next person we're recognizing today from Bridgeway is Olivia Punla, who was nominated by her supervisor, Yasmin Paramo. And since 2018, Olivia has been a wellness specialist at Bridgeway. And since that time, she has just grown by leaps and bounds. As we know, our field is challenging. We have so many stressors. We talked about those stressors today. We talked about burnout. We talked about all these things that we face. However, Olivia is able to face those things, and she's been able to manage those things, providing patience, care, and support to the individuals that she serves. Olivia approaches everyone without apprehension. She's wonderful at building rapport and trust while providing that support. People feel safe working with her, opening up to her, sharing their traumas, their thoughts, their feelings, their wishes. They feel like they have a voice and can be assisted to find the motivation to change for the better with Olivia by their side. And as Yasmin said, it is my pleasure to recognize her ethics, her professionalism, and the genuine traits in Olivia's demeanor that enable her to be an exemplary psychiatric rehabilitation practitioner. So congratulations, Olivia. Okay. Next up from Bridgeway is Albert Saleo, known as AJ. And AJ is a psychiatric nurse on one of the PEC teams at Bridgeway. And he has been in that role since 2021, going above and beyond on behalf of their person served every day. He's a strong advocate. He promotes wellness and independence. He treats everyone with respect, instilling hope, independence, and encouraging them to keep working at their goals. And in doing that, he's a team player, always goes the extra mile to help his coworkers, assisting people wherever they need. His engagement skills are very, very strong, so he's particularly successful in engaging and bringing to the team acceptance of support from the team, those persons who are the most resistant or hesitant to engage with the team. His caring and respect comes time. He's dedicated to supporting the recovery of individuals served by the team and goes out of his way to support anybody and everybody. So congratulations, AJ. Okay. Next up, we have Leonard Smith from JFS of Atlantic and Cape May counties. Leonard is a community support services, CSS, one of our favorite services, is a CSS case manager for their enhanced supportive housing program. And he provides a practical rehabilitation approach to ensure that each person receives the focus-centric services and resources that they need. Leonard brings passion, intuition, and empathy to his work every day. He is forward-thinking. He consistently embraces opportunities to learn and implement best practices, which enhances both his career goals, his career growth, his ability to assist his peers and his colleagues. He regularly shares these practices with them. We also want to add here that in 2021, just a few years ago, back in the days of COVID, Leonard was selected at JFS for their very prestigious Heart and Soul Award, honoring a member of the team there who consistently surpasses expectations, displays exceptional dedication, respect, and compassion for others. He exemplifies the agency's core mission and values, working tirelessly with unwavering commitment, empathy, exceptional emotional intelligence. He is truly the heart and soul of JFS. Congratulations, Leonard. All right, next up we have Vilana Tack from Alternatives. And Vilana is a CSS case manager. And in the last year or so, year plus now that she has been with Alternatives, she has proven to be an extremely hard worker and someone who is just so easily and consistently visible, assisting their clients through motivational interviewing, harm reduction techniques, utilizing those evidence-based and best practices. In managing a caseload of over 50 people through staff shortages and all of the things that we encounter, she brings her wealth of knowledge and applies it every day. Everyone has positive feedback for her, whether it's the clients, collateral providers that the agency works with, that she interacts with on behalf of the agency, and of course, all of her colleagues. She is so very dedicated to help the individuals with the highest needs. She's able to meet people where they are. One of the examples that we received was that she was successful in being able to engage someone who had not allowed anyone in their home for 10 years. Alana was able to lack of a better term, break down that wall, to break that barrier with that individual and be able to begin engaging them in services, which also included wrapping around lots of other services, everything from screening services, the Office of Aging, Adult Protective Services, you name it. She had to manage all of it. She sorted it out quickly and she got it done. Great example to her colleagues, a fabulous resource to her agency, and congratulations, Vilana. All right, next up from CSP, nominated by Adriana Chazan, we have Jamira Witherspoon. Adriana starts out by telling us that she is called by those who know her Jammy, which is fabulous. Jammy is a housing specialist who is a rising, shining star at CSP and in the field. She's patient, kind, humanely supporting each and every person on their own particular path and in their own particular goals. She talks with people, not to them. She gains knowledge about them and utilizes that to help them navigate their paths. She can morph and adjust to whatever the circumstances require. If that means dressing down on a day at work to help somebody clean their house, to really help them clean their house, or to be dressed up a little bit because you got to be out there engaging with the landlords. You're out doing the advocacy. You're meeting with the other providers. You're doing all of the things that you need to do to get the job done. She has great diplomatic skills to teach and model effective communication, and she makes her presence known in a strong, caring, and professional manner. She can quickly read a situation. She engages in the moment. Her dedication and working with individuals is unique. Her personality allows her to keep folks coming back, connected with her, which supports the team and able to help people to achieve both their wellness and long-term goals. So congratulations, Jamie. All right, now we're moving on to our supervisors. And, excuse me, and the first person that we're recognizing is April Sestrelli from Bridgeway. She was nominated by Nancy Schneelock, and April is a team leader for the intensive supportive housing team at Bridgeway, and she's been there since 2016. She demonstrates leadership qualities, whether it's working with individuals, working with her team, managing the program, engaging externally. She is a role model for her team and the agency. In working with individuals, April is always modeling professional and ethically sound support. She has strong clinical skills and is able to assist, support, and enhance the engagement of people who are less ready to receive services, and to help members of her staff team be able to do those things too. She trains and teaches the provision of evidence-based practices, motivational interviewing, cognitive behavioral techniques, IMR, RAP, IDDT, and trauma-informed care. She is dedicated to the individuals they work with and her team. She provides strong supervision to her team, to other teams. She provides clinical supervision to individuals who are pursuing clinical licensure, and she also serves on the organization's mentor team, helping to develop staff who aspire to supervisory and other leadership roles. So congratulations, April. Okay, next up is Christina Coletti. Pardon me for that, Christina. Christina Coletti is with CSBNJ, where she is the Deputy Director in the Northern Region. She is, as described by her nominator, Anne Smalling-Thielen, the very essence of what it means to be a leader who not only models, but also trains staff to provide readily accessible services to all individuals whenever they are needed. She understands that it's about creating an environment where people feel welcome and supported, and she has guided staff members to meet the diverse needs of the individuals the agency serves, ensuring that no one is ever left behind. Christina spearheaded a training entitled Simplifying CSS. For those here on the call who work in CSS, we know it can be a myriad of confusion at times, and she took on helping to make it more digestible, more simple to use, and easier to understand for individuals served in the agency. She embodies the values of inclusivity and accessibility, and she promotes a philosophy that she calls kind accountability, never being too busy to listen and care. And she fosters a culture of openness and understanding, having created a workplace where everyone feels valued and respected. Her leadership has not only transformed the way services are delivered, but have also had a profound impact on the lives of countless individuals. Congratulations, Christina. Next of our supervisors, we have Michael Fritz from Newbridge. Michael Fritz joined Newbridge back in 2016, and he is there now as a team leader. And Michael was nominated by Carolyn Dean. Michael has an instinctive ability to focus on individuals' qualities, not the labels and not the diagnoses. He is an excellent collaborator, supporting individuals to identify their own narrative, their own strengths, their preferences, and to use those things to help them stay on their path to recovery. As it was stated in the documents sent to us, rejection of a service is never failure on the part of the consumer, but it's an opportunity for the team to further brainstorm and better align with that individual's values and desires in pursuit of their wellness and recovery goals. And he's not a manager, he's not a leader to sit behind a desk. He likes to be out in the field. He wants to collaborate, whether it be with his team or with the individuals they serve. His staff-centered supervisory style enables everyone to feel empowered and keep going, even when things get discouraging. His advocacy and determination to elevate and improve people's lives from their perspective continually reminds the entire Newbridge team of the importance of autonomy and dignity for everyone in their own journey. Newbridge is grateful for all of the compassion and personalized, committed care he brings to the organization and the people they serve. Congratulations, Michael. Next up, again from Bridgeway, we have Allison Healy, also nominated by Nancy Schneelock. Allison has been with Bridgeway since 2002. Took a little break and couldn't help but come back. And she is the team leader for their Tri-County risk team in the northwestern part of the state. She leads her team with positive energy and advocacy. On any given day, she's advocating with other service providers to improve services for individuals. She's fighting the good fight with the hospitals, and most of the people on this call know how challenging that can be to secure better discharge plans and better and more immediate access to community services for individuals that they serve. She supports her team, whether it's in person, in the field, or on the phone, wherever they are, whenever it is, whatever they need, she's there to provide it. She's particularly keen on training new staff on person-centered approaches, on the utilization of motivational interviewing. She has strong clinical skills, and she is also someone who really is well in tune with folks who have higher levels of needs and may be more challenging to work with to help bring them into care and services. Allison helps individuals stay focused on their goals, and she's skilled at working with people of all backgrounds. As we said, she comes in late, she comes in early. She brings in the team building activities and always has a positive smile to lend support to whomever is in need. Congratulations, Allison. Next up from Newbridge, nominated by Carolyn Dean, we have Patrick Pearson. Patrick came to Newbridge back in 2001. He is now an assistant director. And in that role, what is instantly apparent about him and his approach to his work is that he is, as Carolyn said, absolutely unflappable. He recognizes autonomy and the personhood of people, and he has great appreciation of people's rights to self-determination, empowerment, and self-direction. He's an advocate for rights both in the community and within the treatment experience. He listens, he validates, he hears the thoughts, the desires, and the needs of the individuals he serves, and he works to ensure that everybody else does too. His goal of success is defined by the individuals who are served at Newbridge. He's made significant contributions to residents aging in place and the supervised housing at Newbridge, and helping the staff to better understand how recovery needs shift and change over time, and what it can mean to journey with residents through end of life. He is out at the sites every week. He provides support, he provides guidance, he works directly with the residents of the programs. He's everywhere. He gets it done. Newbridge Services staff and consumers alike owe him a debt of gratitude for his passion and his advocacy. Congratulations, Patrick. All right, next up from Bridgeway is Martha Wolf. Martha, nominated by her supervisor, Nancy Schneelock, is a team leader with the Middlesex Risk Program at Bridgeway, and she's been in that role since August of 2021. She provided leadership and guidance in program development, staff supervision, service delivery, service quality, and Martha joined that team at a time of great transition and change. So she was someone who was very quickly able to step in and get to work. She provides strong leadership, she has well-honed clinical skills, and she ensures every day that the person served are receiving high quality and evidence-based services. She took the lead across all of the CSS teams at the agency to make sure that everyone was trained up and up to date with their CBT skills. And that was training that she had received through the Beck Institute that she was making sure to share with her peers. She takes new staff under her wing and trains them to ensure that they understand person-centered services and how to best focus on recovery goals. She too provides clinical supervision to colleagues pursuing clinical licensure. And Martha is the person, she is the go-to to take the lead with the most challenging individuals to help them to focus and move towards their goals. She is hands-on and she leads by example. Congratulations, Martha. Okay, so our administrators. So we had two people, actually two people nominated our next person, two colleagues. And this is Janine Arlotto, who is the Executive Administrative Assistant at Bridgeway. And Janine has been with Bridgeway for, I don't have her right in front of me. Janine's been with Bridgeway for a long time. She supports the CEO. She supports the Executive Vice President. She also supports the Quality Improvement Department. She improves compliance when it's licensing season. She supports human resources. And as it says here, every other person with any other title who needs assistance. So that also includes marketing, fundraising, volunteering for events. Oh, and the Board of Trustees, when they have questions, they call Janine. So she is the person who is everywhere and is able to handle just about everything. She is central to completion of proposals and RFPs, so much so that she is known to call in and support completion of those proposals from a Caribbean island. Her dedication and her commitment to the work is key to enabling others at the agency to provide the highest standard of care. And as efficiency becomes more and more important in healthcare, she's an asset to the success of the organization. She always exudes a positive outlook and is able to enhance the teamwork of all of her colleagues. She prides herself on the accuracy and the timeliness of her work, and she consistently succeeds in enhancing the reputation of her colleagues. Congratulations, Janine. Okay. Next up, also nominated by two of her colleagues, Carolyn Bazan from MHA-NJ. And as it was said, Carolyn has been a shining star. So we've got a couple of stars here today. Well, we have a lot of stars here today. Some people specifically called out as stars. Since she joined MHA in 2019 in the Career Connection Employment Resource Institute. Carolyn is a lot of things. She is a mental health first aid instructor, a question proceed refer trainer, a wellness and recovery action plan facilitator, a certified recovery support practitioner, and a certified rehab counselor. She has the unique ability to utilize her academic specialty certifications and life experience to motivate colleagues and audiences to recognize the integrated nature of work to support people with disabilities and challenges to reach their goals. Since 2023, Carolyn has been the director of the CCERI, and she's created groundbreaking programs: mental health in the workplace, burnout training, enriching the experience of psychiatric rehabilitation professionals, and equipping them with tools to effect positive change. She's created training opportunities across a wide variety of topics. And in May, so I think we just missed it, she has received her PhD in counselor education and supervision. So congratulations on that accomplishment. Congratulations for all that you do at MHA. Congratulations, Carolyn. And rounding out our day, we are recognizing an educator today, and that educator is Amy Banco. Congratulations, Amy. Amy was nominated by Derek Malinzak, and for the last 7 years, Amy has been part of the Integrated Employment Institute at Rutgers University. Amy demonstrates, and she is also, of course, a member of the teaching faculty. for the department. She demonstrates unwavering commitment to psych rehab. And during her time as a direct care practitioner, she excelled in her role in empowering people in recovery to realize the valued roles of worker and student by providing effective supported employment and education interventions. And as I said, she spent the last 7 years with IEI. Many of us here on this call have had the opportunity to participate in trainings that Amy has provided, whether they be live and in person or in virtual format. So we know how incredibly she's provided training and technical assistance to a multitude of agencies and organizations. And she is a passionate advocate for people in underrepresented populations and fights for a more diverse and inclusive society through all of her actions. She teaches about supported employment in the university's undergraduate programs as a subject matter expert. She's humble. She's always working to strengthen her ability to effectively serve others, yet serves as a leader and a role model as a practitioner, educator, and advocate. Amy brings her wealth of service provision and education about helping individuals in recovery in the community through this education and employment services, and she truly represents the idea of community integration, bringing that energy everywhere she goes, especially and including to us at NJPRA. Congratulations, Amy. So as we are coming down, we have 3 minutes. I have 3 minutes with all of you. And I don't want to keep people past our 1 o'clock. So first off, congratulations to everyone who is recognized today for all the wonderful things that you do. You will be receiving your certificates through your agencies, and you will also be receiving the write-ups that your colleagues wrote. There's just not time enough for me to share all of it here. So you will get those things. A thank you again to our presenters, to Patty, to Brittany, to Lisa. Mindfulness-based stress reduction, taking the time to think about what we're doing, to be present, to think about, what is our why? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? How are we doing it? What's happening around us? This thread that wove through the day today. I don't know if anybody else, but I'm going to be going back and looking at the recordings again in a few spots and taking a few more screenshots and writing some notes because how we do what we do is so important, not only to our ability to do it, but our ability to take care of ourselves, right? Our ability to maintain the joy and the gratitude and just to feel the pride that we all felt in our work when we very first started. And sometimes we lose it a little bit because the weight is so heavy and our plates are so full, right? Let's use some of these things from today to help us to get back to some of those places. We thank you all for being with us today. You have the virtual proceedings to reflect back on things. We've got our little commercials in there for our public policy committee for exciting changes that are coming up in the NJPRA website. You have links in there to National Council, to PRA, to the Psych Rehab Association, who is our national, quote unquote, if you will. So I certainly do encourage folks to take a look at those things. And it's 12:59, so I'm going to stop talking, but I want to thank you all for being here. As always, it was a lovely morning with you all. And we look forward to seeing everybody live and in person in the fall. So have a great rest of the day, everybody. Be well.